In some cases, maybe even reducing what you owe significantly. An open phone line has been established by Community Tax for consumers to call and see if they qualify. Simply dial 800-251-2305. If you owe back taxes to the IRS and cannot afford to pay them back or have years of unfiled tax returns, help is standing by. Just call the Community Tax Helpline today at 800-251-2305 for the help that you need. Don't take on the IRS alone. They can attack your wages, savings, pension, home, and even your Social Security check. Call 800-251-2305 to see if you qualify. That's 800-251-2305.
Jim Gaffigan here with some more Straight Talk. Let's take a moment to appreciate our sweet children, loving grandparents, and eternal soulmates. Now let's use them to save money on wireless. Because with the Straight Talk Silver Plan, you get 4 lines for just $25 a month with unlimited data and no contracts. So add those human pawns, loved ones, and save money. Thanks, kids. They're finally worth it. Straight Talk Wireless, available at Walmart.
Get 4 lines on Silver Unlimited for $25 per line per month, plus taxes and fees. For data management practices and additional terms, visit straighttalk.com.
Frankie drives end-to-end, scoops it up and in with 2 seconds left. Frankie Collins end-to-end. Join the action this season and catch USC, UCLA, Washington, and Arizona when they come to Desert Financial Arena in the final year of the Pac-12 Conference. Collins over to Lance for 3. Bullseye! Get your tickets today by calling 480-965-5812 or go online to sundeviltickets.com. Sun Devil men's basketball. Onward to victory.
Hey, Ralph, got another solar question for you.
Okay, but did you check out the Harmon Solar podcast first?
The what?
The Harmon Solar podcast. We put new episodes up twice a month that teach you all the things you ever wanted to learn about solar. We discuss things like how solar works, the roofing, sales process, demand management, everything solar.
Show like this needs some real smart thinkers, huh?
Well, yeah.
So you got some really great guests then, huh?
Almost every show.
Is it on Spotify?
Yep.
iTunes?
Yep. Just search it everywhere. It's the Harmon Solar podcast. Go check it out at harmonsolar.com.
I'm an Arizona truck driver. I deliver food, medicine, supplies, and hope.
And during times of crisis, I support our communities. But every day I see people putting lives and families at risk.
Distracted driving is deadly, period. Be aware, be safe, and visit sharetheroadaz.com and find tips on how to drive safely around trucks.
This message is sponsored by the Arizona Trucking Association Foundation.
Hey, Jeffrey O'Brien here. And listen, a lot of us play fantasy football this time of year, and it's fun. But what you should be playing is fantasy electric bills. What's that? It's where you get with Harmon Solar, and they save you over 80% off your electric bill every month. Then, each time you open up that bill, you're going to feel like you just won a championship. Call Harmon Solar today. Get a free estimate. 800-281-3189. That's 800-281-3189, or go to harmonsolar.com.
KQFN Tempe.
Also transmitting on K25CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240U Fountain Hills at 95.9 FM.
Live from the Harmon Solar Studios in Scottsdale.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
All right, people, settle down.
Because it's time.
Time for what?
Showtime.
When does it start?
Right now. 3, 2, 1.
Let's get on with the show. Let's do it.
Surprise! And welcome to another edition of the Daily Blender. It's us again.
Surprise.
Yeah. Maybe you wanted Randy, maybe you wanted Jeffrey, but you got me. I'm Keon Rose. And you got Ralph from Harmon Solar. And well, the plan is to give you another good show today, which is more than what could be said about what the Chargers did last night. You are listening to the Daily Blender live from the Harmon Solar studios. 888-368-1580 is the text line. That is how you jump online. And Tihua's, hallelujah, Brandon Staley has been fired. So Tihua's, who by the way has been texting, hallelujah, Brandon Staley has been fired basically for the last every hour for the last I don't know, he got like 6 texts from him. He sent them all in basically right before the show started, but he's been texting fire Brandon Staley. If you go back on the text line, he's been texting fire Brandon Staley all season long. And I don't think that that's an unpopular opinion. I think most Chargers fans were right there.
He got his wish.
He got his wish.
And Tom Telesco gone.
And Tom Telesco. And I think that that's probably the best news there, because he put together a roster that had significant gaps in it. There was talent on the roster.
Yeah.
But there were just gaps in that roster. But we'll get to the head coach stuff. We'll get to the GM stuff. We'll play a little bit of the blame game. Who had more of it, Staley or Telesco? We'll look at who the potential replacements for Brandon Staley are. We'll get there as well. But let's talk about the game first, because we thought it was going to be a bad game. We did think it was going to be a bad game, but not like this. Like low scoring. If you told me at the end of the game the Chargers would have scored 21 points, I would have assumed they won the game.
Right.
Not that they lost by 42 points.
I turned it on, I think, after the first quarter, and it was 21-0. I'm like, what? What's going on here?
Yeah, it was awful. I went to the gym, and so the gym, they usually have the game on, but they don't have Amazon. So I didn't see, the first quarter. Then I drove home, and I turned on my phone, and I screamed. Like I just because I couldn't believe the numbers that I was looking at. I don't think I've ever seen an ass kicking like that on a Thursday night game in a divisional rivalry where both of these teams, they're not having a great season. And honestly, if you have to pick one, I think a lot of people might have said the Chargers were the better team of these two struggling teams. So, like, in your opinion, Ralph, what the hell happened?
I have no freaking idea. This is ridiculous. 63 points. I was absolutely floored. And, I'm sitting there saying this could be a 0-0 tie. Boy, was I wrong.
We all felt that way a little bit.
Aiden O'Connell actually didn't look bad. I mean,
4 touchdowns, man, no picks.
He had a good game. Jacoby Myers threw a touchdown. I mean, I have Jacoby Myers in fantasy.
Oh my God!
I decided I'm going to play this guy and see what happens, and it worked out. But I mean, he looked good. The Raiders just did a lot right yesterday. I mean, a lot. Like they should have been doing this all year. I don't know how you explain stuff like this. I mean, they just played a solid offensive and defensive game.
Yeah, both sides of the football. Meanwhile, the Chargers played basically nothing correctly on either side of the ball. Antonio Pierce, the interim head coach for the Raiders, said that, the tone was set when Khalil Mack got pancaked to start the game. Yeah. It's hard to argue with that because it basically was downhill from there. And it just looked like the Chargers quit on Brandon Staley.
Well, it looks like they've quit a few weeks ago, right? That locker room must be a mess. I mean, they're probably excited today that this guy's gone. It's been 2.5 years of this guy, and it hasn't worked. And you could just tell they just weren't there. Maybe they tanked to get rid of this guy, because who gives up 61 or 63 points to the Raiders? Nobody. I mean, I don't know.
Not this Raiders team.
No, not this team. Maybe they just gave up and tanked and said, let's get rid of this guy. We have power here. I don't know. But they just didn't look like they were there. They haven't looked like they've been there for a while. And it's done. I mean, he's done. They're done.
I looked at the score last night, and I had a thought that, wow, maybe when they come out of the tunnel at halftime, Brandon Staley shouldn't just be the head coach. He should just be, heading back home. And then I come to find out, I was doing some research this morning. That's exactly what Richard Sherman said on the broadcast. I'm going to play it.
Sherm, what do you make of that first half? You're a Chargers fan.
I mean, throw up in a cup, CT. This is one of the worst first halves I've seen from a team. It just looks like they've given up. They've quit. They packed their bags. They packed all their suitcases. They booked their vacations, and they're ready to go. Brandon Staley, I hate to say this because you don't ever want to call for somebody's job, but they should fire him they should make history. They should fire him at halftime. They should just, hey, we got an Uber X carpool outside, and we'll send you on your way. Because right now, I've never seen a team come out this uninspired.
And yeah, no, that's how I felt. Like, why even bother running him back out there, especially since whatever it is that he said at halftime, and they weren't hearing it on that team.
Boy, Sherman's fun. I love Sherm. I mean, he couldn't have said it any better, right? I mean, wow.
Yeah, he's entertaining, but he was trying to make light of something that was just hard to watch. It's just really like, man, these guys have a family. And I do think it was worth pointing out for whatever it's worth that, getting a guy getting fired while as a fan, when you're frustrated with the team, watching that person get fired could be satisfying. And I'm not worried about Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley got paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
He'll be okay. But there are other people on that staff that they're now going to have to figure out where else to go, relocate their families and all this other stuff. I know they signed up for it, but it's not like they make a ton of money doing these jobs, but they need to get done for football to move on. And I want to point out that human side of this, because basically everything that's going to be said from now until the end of this hour is going to sound like tap dancing on the grave of Brandon Staley. And it kind of is that. So I just want to point that out there before we jump on into it. But
well, I think that's a really good point. And it's not about Brandon Staley or Tom Telesco, because you know what, you said it. These guys are going to be fine.
Yeah,
these guys are going to get paid out. They don't care, right? So they lost their job. Boo-hoo. They got to collect their money. They'll get another job eventually somewhere doing something. It's the other guys that aren't guaranteed money, that these guys are going to be out of work here soon. What happens to them? So you're right. I mean, that's the human side of it. You feel bad for them, but not for the head guys.
No, it's never, you don't want to be fired, and it doesn't feel good, and having to pick up your family and move again, not great. But of all the people who have that happen to them in the world, football coaches are going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
General managers are going to be all right. I worry about the other folks. But when you look at a game like this, where just from the beginning, it's complete failure to launch and there's nothing that's going correctly, it almost makes you want to question all of the other stuff that coaches have said before. And Brandon Staley notoriously said earlier in this season that actually, if the guys in the locker room stopped listening to his message, they would be blown out by about 40 points. Those were his words. And so the fact that that exact thing happened is unfortunately the nail in his coffin. You couldn't bring him back after a game like that, after, quite frankly, a run with the Chargers like this, because this wasn't just the one bad loss. This feels bad, but it's a regular season game. And despite the fact that the Raiders have these bragging rights that they're going to rub in your face forever, it was just one loss. The fact that you lost by 42 points still only counts as one loss. But when you add that to the fact that they had basically the Jaguars dead to rights in their playoff game last year, they were up 27-0 before blowing that entire lead and losing that game. Or the year before, where they could have made the playoffs. I don't know if it was the Raiders again in that game, actually. And with about 38 seconds to go, Brandon Staley makes a questionable decision to call a timeout that actually helps the Raiders. And there you go. The Chargers do not make the playoffs there. So they're just little things where he's making these odd decisions that pile up to the Chargers losing. And that's before you even get to some of the other stuff where he relies so much on the analytics and he doesn't put it in context ever. So it's like he's going for, 3rd and 1 on his own 20 or 4th and 1 on his own 20. It's like, fine. But if you don't get that, the other team now has the ball on your 20. Are you sure that's a good idea? Maybe you might want to punt this. This is not mad. But he would do stuff like that.
And I don't know if you saw Dean Spanos, the owner, he put a statement out. It was it's kind of like what you were just talking about. He was basically saying that the Charger fans just deserve more. And he said it's never easy to do something like this because he thinks about the families and all that. So that was kind of cool how he went down that road. But he said our fans just deserve so much more and we're going to have to do something about it. So that's why he made the decision. So I respect that. That was the right thing to say. And now I'm curious to see this poor guy that's going to be the interim. What's his name? Jiff Smith? Giff, Jiff Smith, I guess. Watch him go in there and all of a sudden they start winning because the team gets reinvigorated.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Raiders.
That's what always happens,
right? You lose Josh McDaniels, and then look, I don't know how qualified Antonio Pierce is to be a head coach, but those guys want to play. They get excited to play for him. He gets them amped up. He lets the practice squad guys hang out on the sideline with everybody else, and that does stuff for the locker room. Teams get fired up about this stuff.
The bad thing is his next 3 weeks are the Bills, Broncos, and Chiefs.
Yeah, look, it's the end of a run. But I will say that for Antonio Pierce, whether or not the Raiders win any more games, he's got them playing hard. They at least care. and give a damn when they go out there. Let's jump to the text line really quick. Tihua says, Keon, you said, fortunately, the nail in his coffin wrong. I don't even know what I said. Guys, I am pushing all kinds of buttons. I am still doing my usual job of running the board, plus doing more talking on the show on account of, Jeffrey's not here, Randy's not here. So if I have a slip of the tongue, get a little distracted, whatever.
You're proving you can do it by yourself. That's good.
There is something to be said about quality. But the fact is, if I misspeak, have a little lenience here. That's all I'm saying. Begging for a little sympathy from the fourth dimension, which has paid off for many people, I hear. The fourth dimension, notoriously kind. Oaktown Destroyer says, I have to agree with Ralph. Where was this all year long? Well, part of it was the Chargers did everything right, but the other issue is that you were playing a team that just quit.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to be there. It looked like they didn't want to be there. I agree with Richard Sherman that, the vacations have been booked. People are thinking about, hey, do I want to go to Tijuana? Are we going to Europe? Where are we going? And you got the wife and the kids and the holiday plans all worked out and everything. I mean, that's where the Chargers were. And so that's part of why the Raiders were able to have the night that they had. I'm not taking anything away from the Raiders, but when you're playing a group of guys that are just ghosts out there, that's kind of the stuff that happens. Chief Skull says, did the Raiders run down the tunnel to get the game ball back? I don't even think that the Chargers cared, honestly. There's nothing to get excited about there. No tunnel. Walter Mellon says the Raiders are going to the Super Bowl. Let's go. Are you even mathematically in it?
They still are. Yeah,
okay.
Still are.
How about that? Mars Bars 805 says, go Lakers and go Knicks, which is the first time I've ever heard that. But good luck to you and your Knicks. I mean, I'm not going to laugh at you. I'm a Wizards
Lakers.
fan.
I'm with you on go Lakers.
Donnie says, please remind your audience this was the same Raiders team that scored 0 points against the mighty Vikings. I mean,
everyone gets that.
Okay. I mean, congrats. I don't know if that's where you want to hang your hat necessarily, but it's something. It's like, hey, look, we held them to nothing, and then they turned around and dropped 63 on some poor team. Maybe we're not that bad. Hefty Lefty says, how dare you not be perfect while doing three people's duties today? Being duties. The Raven Kid says, Ralph's favorite person. Hey, Keon, if you guys needed another guy on the show today, I would have been more than happy to join you guys.
You did it once, and that's why we didn't call you. Oh, no. Just so you know, Raven.
Right? I mean, it would have been fun, but
for somebody.
For somebody,
not for our audience.
I think you and the Raven Kid going back and forth might have been funny.
I would have enjoyed that, but I'd want to be in studio with him so that I can hit him with a stick while we're talking.
Oh my god. So there you go, the Raven Kid. That's probably why that didn't happen. We were protecting you. That's what
we love you.
Somebody knows. Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't sound genuine coming out of your mouth
it's
at
really
all.
Not. It's
you were trying to be nice. I felt the intention. I just didn't believe you.
It's like having that kid that you really don't like, but you got to pretend you like. You know what I'm saying? So you'll figure it out.
Yeah, except you pretended for about half a second.
I mean, one of my three kids is like that. I'll let them figure out who it is.
Oh man, my parents used to do stuff like that too.
Yeah,
just like, yeah, one of you is my least favorite kid, and then the three of us would be sitting in the back seat of the car going, "It's you, right? It's you." So Brandon Staley, Tom Telesco fired, and first off, the reporter at the end of the game asked Brandon Staley just the douchiest question.
Uh-oh.
He said, "Do you think you're going to be coaching next week?" And he was like,
Wow.
"I don't know." You know what the answer likely is. What's he supposed to say about it? That just seemed like an a-hole thing to do.
That's an a-hole thing. You don't do that.
Yeah, I didn't like that at all. But regardless, they're gone, and there is a blame game to be played here because partially Brandon Staley was supposed to be this defensive guru. He comes in from the 49ers, and quite frankly, if you're a Chargers fan, and you're looking at what the Texans are doing with DeMeco Ryans, the other defensive coordinator that replaced Brandon Staley. DeMeco Ryans is having success in Houston right away, where Brandon Staley kind of doesn't have that on his resume as a head coach right now. But Staley was supposed to be this revolutionary guy. And I was reading all kinds of things and watching all kinds of film breakdowns about how his defenses are ahead of the league and doing all kinds of things that, nobody else was doing, and other teams were taking his ideas and using them. Well, apparently they were using them better. And then on the other hand, you have general manager Tom Telesco, who didn't put talent, I would say, in key spots. They have talent.
They definitely have talent.
Look at, Joey Bosa, when you look at Justin Herbert, obviously, and then the wide receiver talent, Keelan Allen, Austin Eckler, they have talented players out there. But it just seemed like it never gelled. And either he didn't give Brandon Staley what it is that he wanted, or he didn't give Brandon Staley, the glue guys on a team that make things work, maybe the more unheralded guys. And also the Khalil Mack thing just didn't work out, which was a big swing that gave up tons of picks that the Bears now have.
I mean, I would hope that Brandon Staley was working side by side with him to try to put the right roster together. And like you just said, they had a lot of talent on that team. He just couldn't make it work for whatever reason. I'm sure it'll come out, but for whatever reason, he lost that locker room. So I don't know. But you know what? Hey, Brandon, that's okay, because there's guys that come out and try to coach and they're terrible. And later on, they try again and they get more mature and they're better. Just go get a coordinator job somewhere and get some more experience, and you never know.
Yeah, and I do think he is a smart guy. I do
there's
think
no doubt.
Maybe his defense was oversold to a degree, but I do think that he's a smart guy, and I think he needed to do a better job. And this is where I am going to put the blame on him. I think he needed to do a better job of adjusting that defense to the personnel he actually had. He didn't want to bring extra pressure. That's just not how his defense works. The rules of that defense. He wanted to have, a lot of guys in coverage. He wanted to make things really hard for quarterbacks to read. But if you don't get pressure, if a guy's got 6, 7, 8 seconds, that's a lifetime in the NFL, to throw from the pocket. And at that point, it doesn't really matter how many guys you have in coverage. There will be somebody open somewhere. And, well, we saw that last night. There were lots of people open everywhere. So that's a major issue there with Staley, Telesco. We're going to talk next here about what is next for the Los Angeles Chargers. They have, the coach opening, obviously. Who should they go after? What should they be looking for? And then also, the Chargers don't have the only potential head coaching job available. There are a handful of jobs out there, and we'll talk about which jobs are good, which jobs are bad, radioactive, which ones should you stay away from. We'll get to that coming up right around the corner. You're listening to the Daily Blender here on 1580 The Fanatic.
This is Brent Musburger's Action Update on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic. Take the guesswork out of your holiday gifts. OmahaSteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and save an additional $30 with promo code VSIN. OmahaSteaks.com.
NBA, the Phoenix Suns are home tonight as they take on the New York Knicks. Phoenix a 5-point favorite, minus 198 on the money line. The Knicks plus 166. The over-under tonight, 232.5. NFL Week 15, the Arizona Cardinals home in Glendale as they take on San Francisco. The Niners are a 12.5-point favorite, minus 770 on the money line. Arizona plus 540. The over-under sits at 48. NHL, Arizona home to face San Jose tonight. The Coyotes favored by 1.5 goals, over under 6.5. I'm Tony Desiri with your VSiN Action Update on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Hey, Jeffrey O'Brien here. And listen, Phoenix has had over 53 days of 110 degree plus this summer. This last July alone, we had 30 consecutive days of 110 plus. And this summer heat might just be the new normal for summers here in Arizona. What you need to do is call Harman Solar today. Harman Solar could save you over 80% off your electric bills. They're a locally owned, family-owned company. Call Harman Solar for a free estimate. 800-281-3189. That's 800-281-3189, or go to harmansolar.com.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-452-5050. That's 1-800-452-5050. Or go to SelectQuote.com. 1-800-452-5050. That's 1-800-452-5050.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save.
Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Hey, I came as fast as I could. What's wrong?
Everything's okay. I just need you to know I'm glowing up.
You just texted SOS Get Here Now.
And I stand by that because I switched to Cricket and got the all-new Motorola Razr. I have entered my flip era and I am glowing up.
I'm going to go back home.
I support that.
Switch to Cricket and get the all-new Motorola Razr for $199.99. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Must open a new line on a $60 a month voice plan. First month service charge and tax due at sale. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Greg Clark Automotive Specialist, located on the southwest corner of Bethany Home and 19th Avenue, servicing Valley automobiles for 44 years. And we're offering our fall inspection on the belts, water pump, radiator, and hoses. Also, our brake service inspection, recommended every year to prevent repairs and ensure top performance. For guaranteed family touch service, contact us at 602-246-2881. Highly rated by Google. Online at GregClarkAutomotive.com. Mention the Fanatic to get 10% off.
What's up, everybody? Nick Costos here, host of You Better You Bet, reminding you to check out the show. Now, why should you check out You Better You Bet? Because we bring you the most fun. We bring you the most insightful, the most entertaining show in the wagertainment world. From up-to-the-minute breakdowns of backdoor covers, bad beats, and the cheers and tears that come alongside them. Plus, you'll get the best betting analysis anywhere from myself, Ken Barkley, and some of the best minds in the sports wagering world. So tune in weekdays, noon to 3 on Arizona sports betting station, 1580 and 99.3, The Fanatic.
Welcome back to the Daily Blender here on 1580 The Fanatic on a Friday edition of the Daily Blender. So just know that things are going to be odd sooner rather than later, because that's just how it goes around here.
Guaranteed.
On the text line, we have the Hefty Lefty, who says Wemby versus AD Part 2 tonight. The basketball nerd in me is interested in seeing how they both change their defense against each other. The fan in me just wants the Lakers dub, which Hefty Lefty is a Lakers fan. And so, yeah, I think that, if you're not going to be looking out for a good game, hopefully your team at least wins in that. But this is, I mean, that has to be appointment TV. I mean, Wemby versus Anthony Davis. I just thought the Spurs actually let Wemby be himself.
Yeah.
And Anthony Davis, a lot of heart there, man. He didn't back down at all from the massive. I mean, Wemby looks bigger than even him.
I just don't think that AD is going to do much different. I mean, he's a veteran. He knows how to attack. I think he's going to go at him just like he did last time. I think Wembley's going to probably have to make some changes or try to figure out how do you stop this guy. He'll get his points. He'll get some nice dunks. They'll probably go back and forth a few times, which will be cool to watch. But I don't see much being different, especially on the AD side. I just don't see it. I'm not sure if James is playing tonight or not. I know he didn't play last time. This guy's he didn't play there tonight.
I don't think he did. No.
So that'll change things up a little bit.
I can look into that there in a second and see if he is.
One of his rest games like last time. So
yeah, I do love how the NBA has tried to squash load management and then just they have not done it. Like teams are still just resting guys. Kevin Durant had a rest day the other day. It was an ankle, but it came out of nowhere and then it was suddenly gone. He just was playing the next game and he was able to join Bradley Beal and everybody. But looking at the injury report, let's see here. You got LeBron James. He's got the calf injury there, but it doesn't say that he's ruled out. So it'll probably be game time release of information. I don't know if it's going to be a game time decision, but
it'll be fun to watch. It could be a blowout this time. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I think that having those two guys and especially having Wemby, who I think needs to learn the NBA game. Like this is where the experience is going to come from when you go up against those other bigs who are already more polished. They know what they're doing around the league. And Anthony Davis has been awesome this year. So you got to give him that credit as well.
He should probably spend some time with AD in the offseason. I bet he would be a heck of a player next year if he did. You never know. Maybe they'll develop that relationship.
I mean,
that used to happen a lot in the older days.
Probably do, because all these guys text each other and all this stuff. And I know that especially once you are considered in the NBA one of the legit guys,
right?
Then all of those guys have your number. Like they all know how to reach out to you. They all know how to, organize games. Some of the best basketball games we never get to see because they're just playing pickup ball in the off season, and you don't have the ticky tack fouls, all of that stuff. But it's not being recorded for anybody, so it doesn't matter. Still, it would probably be good for Wemby to get caught up in that kind of mentorship.
Back in the day, you would have to sneak into the UCLA basketball arena, and you'd find all these pickup games going on with Kobe and Shaq and all these other guys. Pretty intense stuff.
Yeah, and
I saw some video that came out of those, and they were pretty amazing.
The infamous Space Jam game that Jordan had everybody come down and play, which nobody should have done because he was out of the league and he was just using it to learn everybody's skills and get back on track. So nobody should have done that, but they all did. And of course, it's a game that, if you ask Magic Johnson, it was a great game. We didn't see it. That Olympics game that we also didn't see.
Yeah.
That just all the stories that come out of that game are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We did not get those. But let me get the show back on track here because I could go down that particular rabbit trail forever. Chief Skull says, gone too soon. Brandon Staley, which gone too soon. If you ask a lot of Chargers fans, they'll tell you he's gone too late. He should have been fired earlier than this. Walter Mellon says, hey guys, I'm curious to see what you think. Why is it so hard for somebody to come from a coordinator type position to being a successful head coach? If you have made the transition successfully, and plenty have failed. I get what your question is, though. The kind of fell apart there at the end, but I get what you're saying. And I'm interested in what you think, Ralph.
I mean, I would say, to me, I look at it in like the business world, right? So, I mean, it's like going from running a department to running a division or running, a section of a corporate company. You might be really good and you're focused on just what you do. So you're a defensive coordinator. You basically just run the defense, and that's the world that you live in every day, right? And you're in that world. But when you take that next step and go to a head coach, now you have to worry about everything. Is every one of your coaches, and you usually have a pretty sizable coaching staff. Are they all doing the things that you need them to do? Can you trust the ones that you have in place? Hopefully you can. And you have to manage all of that on top of other things, including the relationship with the GM, worrying about the draft, all these other things. It becomes a way bigger thing to have to work with versus just managing the defense and coordinating the defense. I mean, not that it's an easy thing to do, but it's a lot more focused, smaller job versus taking on the whole organization. That's where I think guys like Cliff Kingsbury really struggle, because I don't think he had it in him to run a whole organization, but he did a really good job when he focused just on an offense. So that's my take. It's more of a business take.
Yeah, and I don't have nearly like the business knowledge that you do, but I have the same answer. Being a head coach is just a different job than being, a coordinator, because you're now in charge of the entire team.
Yep.
So, the defensive coordinator has to report to you too, and you have to have an idea as to how you want that defense to be, and how the defensive coordinator has to sort of fall in line with what your vision for that defense is. Because offense and defense are complementary parts of the game. And if the defense is lagging in one way, it will affect the offense. Even if you used to be an offensive coordinator, you're an offensive-minded coach, just leaving the defensive coordinator alone and never talking to him, that's not how any of this works. Your view is so much more broad that, yeah, you're doing a different job, essentially. The general manager is either your boss or you're his boss. But either way, you have to work together to decide who are the best personnel for this team and how do we get them? Do we get them in free agency? It'll cost more, but we might get more reliable guys. We might get cheaper guys in the draft, but we only have a handful of picks. Who do we get? All of that stuff is stuff that the head coach has to worry about, that if you're an offensive coordinator, no, you don't. You just show up and coach the offense.
Yeah, I mean, and your coaches have to have your vision, right? If your coaches don't have your vision, I mean, you're going to have a lot of issues there. And even if they have your vision, maybe they're not as good as getting something across the way you are or the way you were in a certain role, right? And now you can't really spend a lot of time focusing on just that. And I think we've seen head coaches that come in and maybe they're a defensive head coach and they really kind of focus hard on the defense because that's what they know. And then you see where their offense really struggles and lags. And maybe they're a team that has a great defense, but they just can't get points on the board. And we've seen that in the past as well. That's a tough gig. I mean, going from just a vision manager to being a CEO, it's a different kind of job, man. It's a different kind of focus. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, it's more people relying on you, more people complaining to you, more people bringing you their problems, and you have to be able to deal with all of that, and with a level of like dignity and grace that like gets people to still be on your side. Later on in the season, So yeah, I mean, it's just quite frankly, it's just a very different job. It's the same job you were doing before, plus 30 other jobs. Oaktown Destroyer says, that's what we thought about Josh McDaniels, and look at him. And I think that was in reference to what you were saying, Ralph, about how, you get fired, you mature, you come back and maybe you do better. And I will answer that, Oaktown Destroyer, by saying Josh McDaniels got fired. He did that part. He didn't do the maturing part. So when he came back, he was essentially the same guy.
Well, and you can tell just by the relationship he was having with his players, right? They did not like him. So maybe he came back thinking, maybe last time I was too soft and I was a player's coach. So now I got to be hard. Well, that's a classic mistake that people make when they get promoted and run bigger organizations. They think they have to walk in there and be like the hard fist guy, right? And that doesn't work because you lose your employees, you lose your team. And maybe that's what happened with him. I don't know. I wasn't there, but if I had to guess, I bet you that was part of the issue.
If I had to guess, I would say the same thing too, because I don't understand how else people react when you get fired and then they win a game without you and they're lighting up cigars in the locker room because they won a regular season game. It had nothing to do with the game. It was because you were gone.
Right.
That's why they were lighting up stogies in the locker room. And I got to tell you, it's not a good sign for Josh McDaniels. And I do think also with Josh McDaniels, he's from the Bill Belichick coaching tree, and all of those guys have the same problem, which is that they try way too hard to be Bill.
Yeah, that's true.
And you go to another organization. Yeah. I remember I had a mentor when I was applying for my first radio job, and I was trying to figure out like what kind of style should I have, and he was just like, your own, they hired you. They didn't hire you pretending to be Jim Rome. They hired you, and I think that the team hired Josh McDaniels and they got Josh McDaniels doing a Bill Belichick impersonation very poorly because there's only one Bill Belichick. And, even that's not going well for Bill right now. So,
and I feel bad for the guy that has to go into New England next and take that organization over. Boy, he better be a really strong, strong-minded guy with a plan, because that's not an easy thing to follow. That's going to be a tough one.
The Raven Kid is back, so I'm sure this is going to be fun.
Here we go.
Ralph only wants to get violent because his Rainy City bitch pigeons aren't looking too well in comparison to my number 1 seed Ravens, which is our bet. Also, we can currently only tie in our bet. Ralph can't even win.
He's 100% right, but what I'm going to enjoy watching is a number 1 seed be one and done. I think that will be the fun part.
Oh boy,
because you could be whatever seed you want. You could be the number 1 guy, but when you lose that first game, you're still sitting on the sidelines like everybody else. So be prepared.
Tihua says Telesco got Staley the type of players he needed, but never built depth. His time came as Staley was his last hurrah to save his own job. And then he also said, hire Jim Harbaugh. I think the Harbaugh ship has sailed. Michigan gave him even more money. So I'm pretty sure he's staying right there. He's also a Michigan alum. He's a Michigan man. I eat steak with milk for whatever reason. That's Jim Harbaugh. He's up there and he's going to stay up there. So you're going to have to hire somebody else, and we'll get through a few names here in just a little bit. Beer Bob says, I don't think Wemby has to hang out with AD to learn anything. I think he already knows how to wear street clothes. Well,
wow. Wow.
That was a funny text. I didn't see the ending of that coming at all.
I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah, it was like an M. Night Shyamalan twist there. But no, I do think that Anthony Davis, just from a technical side, man, like he's just as polished at the position as anybody playing the game right now. It's Jokic and Embiid and Anthony Davis as the 3 best centers that are just the complete package of offense, defense, maybe less defense for Jokic, but he plays in the concept of that team so well that you almost can't tell.
Yeah, I mean, I think Davis is the overall best probably position center in the game right now. If you look at his whole game, when he's healthy, his whole game versus everybody else.
Okay, hefty lefty. He said, I think Dignity and Grace are working at Jaguars tonight. All right. All right. Might potentially be telling on yourself there, my friend. I don't know what to add to that. So I won't. Big George says, hello, gentlemen. Happy Friday and TGIF. Well, the Chargers finally fired their head coach and GM. Definitely deserved after yesterday's debacle. I guess Dean Spanos said, the team is clearly not where it is expected to be and new vision is needed. Everyone here in San Diego agrees. San Diego agrees and says, yeah, they were supposed to be here in San Diego and not LA. Now the only guy left that needs to go is Dean Spanos himself, the worst owner in the entire NFL. And I don't know that that's true because the Panthers exist. And he's awful.
But I mean, I'll agree to a point. The Chargers need their own identity. And moving to LA, I think, was a really bad idea. Obviously, I understand the financial piece around it. I'm sure it was a great move for Mr. Spanos. But I think for the overall organization, I think it was a horrible move. Now, aren't they building they're building their own stadium?
They are.
Like $1 billion stadium.
I did read that. Yeah, like they're leasing basically SoFi until they have their own place built. So,
and I think that's important. They need to get out of SoFi. They need to get away from the Rams, and they need to try to create their own everything, their own stadium, their own aura, their own destiny, whatever. But get away from the Rams. I think that really hurts them. I wish they were back in San Diego. I think that was a mistake to leave. So Big George, I agree. They should have stayed in San Diego. They had a loyal fan base down there. They probably still do have a huge fan base down there, but I think them getting away from the Rams will help, and trying to find the right leader now is going to be, this is a big deal now. Got to find the right guy.
Yeah. And I think that, Spanos
starts
with the GM. And I think Spanos wants that. I think that to say he's the worst owner in the NFL, I don't know. He is a businessman, and he did what made business sense for him and his wallet in moving the team to LA. But he wants to win. He wants to win. He wants to spend the money to win. He's not one of those owners that's just out there, collecting the money from the fans, but not putting a winning product out on the field. He's tried to do that. But it's just, the team that they had with Staley and Telesco that they constructed, it just wasn't a good roster. I can't remember who it was that brought up depth as an issue, but that is huge. And thanks for bringing that up. But then, also Staley, just like whatever you have, the team's not deep enough. You're going to have to adjust some things. But this was a playoff team last year.
Well, I hate to tell Spanos, but the reality is, and people that I hear from in LA, they don't want the Chargers. So their best bet is either move to Orange County where the Angels are, because nobody cares about Orange County, or just move back, because you need to get out of LA. You don't have a fan base there. They're not interested.
Yeah. And I remember Bill Plaschke wrote a column for the LA Times when the Chargers moved to LA. And it was just basically just giant headline, "We don't want you here." And then he wrote for like 1,000 words about why they didn't want him there. Nobody in Los Angeles wants the Chargers.
It hasn't changed.
And then the San Diego fans are like, what the hell?
Right.
We love this team. They should have never left. And, the city didn't want to give Spanos what he wanted. And so he left. The same thing with a bunch of owners. But it for them to go back to LA with the Rams, I agree with you, was just a really bad idea, because it just erased their identity.
Yep.
They're just going to be in the Rams shadow forever. People in LA love the Rams. They already have a familiarity with that team. The team's been there before.
Yep.
And the team's a winner. So that also makes it harder for you. If you're going to be there, you better win, or at least keep up with the Joneses. And they don't even do that.
Yeah. In LA, if you don't win, you need to move on. I don't care what sport it is. You better win.
It's
an expectation yearly.
LA, I think, New York, those are the two cities where they don't care what the circumstances are. Boston's up there too, definitely. They don't care what your circumstances are.
Nope.
They have a history of winning. And, Chris Rock has a joke about how you can't ever get a woman to go backwards. Like, if you have a nice car, getting a crappier car she's not going to be happy with that. If you had a nice house, going to a crappier house, people don't go backwards. And those fan bases have won so much, they don't go backwards.
This is why I've always bought myself nice cars and never bought my wife a nice car, because the second I buy her a nice car, now I've got to stay at that level. So I've always had her drive the worst car. That's just how you could ask her. That's just how it works.
That's how it is. She's never made us think about this, which I find.
Well, she's made a couple comments, but I just pretend I don't hear them. So yeah, that's nice. Come here, drive my car.
Marriage. It sounds delightful.
It's wonderful.
Tiwa says, I'd much rather have David Tepper than Dean Spanos. Oh, there are Panther fans. I have friends who are Panther fans, and
disagree.
I don't know that that's true, but you know what? David Tepper might actually come up in conversation later in the show. We are right up against the break, so I'll read this last text from Hefty Lefty. We will go to break. We'll come back and we will talk about which of these coaching openings are the best for any potential head coach out there, and also what should the Chargers do? We teed that one up, and then we didn't actually get there. Hefty Lefty says the Chargers should lease some fans to the Rams too. Do they have to? Because it seems like when the Chargers have games in SoFi, it's more of whatever the other team is than Charger fans out there. That's what it looks like on TV. I'm not there, but it does appear as though the Chargers don't have enough fans to lease. That would be my observation there. I don't know. Hefty Lefty, you let me know. You're listening to the Daily Blender here on 1580 The Fanatic.
Hey guys, Chris Brockman here. Prize Picks. It's the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. And now I can play during basketball season too. I can take combo projections across both sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less their projection, and place your entry. You could turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And Prize Picks is the only DFS platform with an injury insurance policy, keeping you in the game if one of your players goes down. Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/primetime and use the code PRIMETIME. That's code PRIMETIME at prizepicks.com/primetime for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
There's a reason why conventional healthcare is referred to as practicing medicine. Hi, this is Dr. Hannah Lindsay. At the Naturopathic Physicians Group in Scottsdale, our doctors are experts in full spectrum care using a natural approach. I regularly see patients with a variety of acute and chronic health conditions, including many autoimmune and rheumatological diseases. We can restore pain-free joint function and balance immune, digestive, and hormone systems, which often improves both immediate physical symptoms and overall well-being. We emphasize natural and holistic interventions with lifestyle changes and take advantage of the full palette of care options from traditional remedies to modern science. We collaborate with experts in a wide range of health disciplines, including physical therapists and specialist physicians, referring patients as needed to ensure the most effective care possible. So how about a second opinion on your health? You might just end up feeling like yourself again. Call Naturopathic Physicians Group at 480-451-6161. That's 480-451-6161. Or go to naturopathicgroup.com.
Can I open it now? I think you've waited long enough.
Yeah, go for it, kiddo.
I already have this baseball cap.
Not this one.
Look a little closer, sweetheart. Signed?
Yeah, buddy.
I can't believe it.
Do you still have that card all these years later? Do you have trading cards that's been sitting in a box for decades? Scottsdale Cards is who you want to call first. The Valley's card, comic book, and collectibles expert since 1989. Scottsdale Cards is your source to sell your trading cards and other collectibles, including those comic books you've been doing nothing with. We are always interested in buying your vintage sports cards and comic books, certified autographs, memorabilia, and collectibles. So what collectibles do you have stored away? They could be worth thousands. Call or text 480-419-2990. That's 480-419-2990. Or go to scottsdalecards.com. That's scottsdalecards.com. Or search Scottsdale Cards on your mobile phone today.
Download the Fanatic app.
News, scores, social media updates, and more on your smartphone, on your tablet. The free Fanatic app, available at the Google Play Store or the App Store, and at 1580thefanatic.com.
Welcome back to the Daily Blender here on 1580 The Fanatic Friday show. We're chugging along. We're talking a lot of Chargers right now because They were embarrassed. National TV, Amazon Prime game, which poor Al Michaels again. Just the worst games. He sounded like he wanted to be anywhere else on the planet Earth, and I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't blame him either.
It's just what a brutal thing. And then the result, of course, is that Brandon Staley fired, general manager Tom Telesco fired, and so there is now a coaching opening in Los Angeles with the Chargers. And there are some names that are being thrown around, and not just for this job, by the way. They're being thrown around for just about every opening that's out there, right, because they are on teams that are doing really well, and they're very talented people. Frank Smith, the Miami Dolphins offensive coordinator, his name's come up a bunch. Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, his name's been up since Frank Reich got fired months ago. And he was connected with the Panthers job. I don't know that he should take that job, but will stop me from getting ahead of myself there. And then Dan Quinn, the Cowboys defensive coordinator, and of course the former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, who did go to a Super Bowl. Then his team imploded, and they just weren't ever the same after that. And maybe he just lost the locker room. Maybe they just couldn't get their identity to change back to anything that resembled winning. There were a lot of things there with Dan Quinn, but he has shown that he's capable of being a good coach for stretches, but also not being a good coach for a little bit.
See, I think he's a prime example of what we were talking about. I really like Dan Quinn as a defensive coordinator. I think he's an amazing defensive coordinator. I just don't think he's got it. I don't know that he can handle being a head coach. He's tried it. He's done very poorly. I don't know. I'm not sold on him as a head coach yet. I'm just not. I love him as a coordinator.
Me neither, by the way. I did radio in, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Georgia. So I was in that South Tennessee, Northern Georgia area. So, a lot of Falcon-based shows. And yeah, everybody was frustrated with Dan Quinn. He was a guy that did struggle to make adjustments, and when his offenses weren't really working, it didn't seem like he was incredibly interested in the offensive side of the ball. So once Kyle Shanahan had moved on to San Francisco and become the Niners coach, they just struggled to replace him. And they tried Steve Sarkisian, they tried a bunch of different guys. It just didn't work out. And I just think that if he doesn't get that right, I don't know that he is maybe he has learned something from that last go round, but I don't think that he's the kind of guy that does a really good job of managing both sides of the ball. I've got no insiders there, just a personal opinion from watching him and watching the team.
I wish he would go back to Seattle and spend a few more years under Carroll and try to learn what it takes to be that guy. Because I think he could be the guy, but he just needs some more mentoring. I don't think he's there yet.
I don't think so either. And what's really interesting too is that he would learn something else from Pete Carroll, which is that Pete Carroll did come to the NFL and fail.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the second go round was when he figured it out and got better. I think that there is something there to be said for that. So yeah, Dan Quinn is someone I'm dubious about. Like I understand why his name is coming up. That Cowboys defense is incredible. But like you were saying before, when you're focusing on just your division and that's all you're focusing on, Dan Quinn's great at that. I think Todd Bowles with the Buccaneers is just like that too. Like you put Todd Bowles as the defensive coordinator somewhere and your defense is going to be lights out.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And I think it's part of the reason why some of these organizations, remember for a really long period of time, especially, you'd see all these retreads, right? You'd have all these coaches that kept coaching and coaching and coaching because nobody wanted to give these younger guys a shot. And because I think they had the same fears that we're talking about. Are these guys really able to handle this? And then I think finally that you've seen that trend kind of change dramatically here the last few years. And we've seen some guys that have actually done a really good job, that have come out and done a really good job first time out. But then you've seen the failures too. I mean, we could go down a list of them. But I think the culture is changing in the NFL, and we're going to see more guys get shots. But this Chargers job, this is not a good job to take if you really think about it. I mean, I think their cap number next year is like minus 45 million, right? I mean, they've got a bunch of talent. They don't have any money to really work with, and they're going to have to trade away that talent. And that's not going to be easy for someone coming in to be able to really have that big of an impact unless they can just get these guys on the same page and get them to actually do what they need them to do. But he's not going to have a lot of room to make a lot of moves. That's going to be the hard part.
Yeah, and this is where my knowledge of Dean Spanos is lacking, because if you're a guy that wants that job. You look at Justin Herbert and you go, look, if we could put a team around that dude, we might be a contender, because Justin Herbert has been the one bright spot, I think, that's been consistent on that team.
No doubt.
And he's battled through injury, and the fact that he's been able to play through some of the things that he's had. He had the torn labrum that he played through. He's played through, broken finger. Just like he's just a warrior of a guy, and he is talented at the position, and it's the most important position on the team. If you're a coach or a potential coach that looks at that job, I can see you needing to talk to Dean Spanos and say, hey man, you're going to need to give me like all 5 of these years. You can't go ahead and can me after a couple of years if we're struggling, because we really need to just reload this entire thing. And maybe that's more of a conversation that the general manager is going to have if he's the one that gets hired next and hired first. I think that's going to be the way that has to go, because I just don't know how you can't go into this situation and win right away. I don't know how you do that.
You need to come in and be able to draft too. I mean, you need to really take advantage of the draft, because like I said, you're kind of capped in what you can do unless you're willing to trade away some good talent. So what I think they should do, so I should call them probably today, is they should trade Herbert to the Seahawks. I think that should happen tomorrow. And we'll alleviate that cap room for them.
Okay, I don't think that's
I think that's what they need to do.
Plan there. I think
it's not the plan, but
incredibly self-motivated on your part.
It's a little
less to do with what's good for the Chargers and probably more to do with what's good for your
but
Seahawks.
I'm not a biased person, so I don't know how you can say that. But
no,
I think
no
that
bias
would be
at
a
all.
good move. But all seriousness, I mean, they really can't make a whole lot of moves. They're going to have to trade talent, and that's going to be a tough thing. I don't know how who you decide to trade. I mean, you've got some good players in that team, but you don't have the depth. Kind of like when we talk about the Suns, right? There's no depth. This team doesn't have that depth either.
No, and right now the Chargers, by the way, have the 5th spot in the NFL draft. So,
which is nice.
It's nice, but you're going to have to hit this one out of the park. And they have so many things that they can go after. Especially when it comes to some of the other guys on that roster that they're going to have to let go just for financial reasons. Like, just you're going to have to get younger and cheaper at some of these positions. It starts with that 5th pick, if that's where they wind up picking. And there's a lot of talent out there. You could probably look at, hey, maybe we go out and get a game-changing receiver who can actually stay healthy. That's been an issue that they've had. Maybe you go out there and try and find somebody who's going to play linebacker, who is ahead of the curve, because it's just hard to find good linebackers in the NFL right now, because they're the position that gets targeted the most by offensive coordinators, because of all the responsibilities that a linebacker has.
I think what would be smart for them would be to take a page out of Belichick and Carroll and maybe trade that pick, go back in the draft and get more picks, so you could bring in a lot more guys than you really have picks right now. Get more picks.
Yeah, that's probably a smart move, because it's not like there's any one thing that they draft that solves all their problems.
Right.
So the other name that's tossed out there is Frank Smith, the Dolphins offensive coordinator. And so these next two guys are different from Dan Quinn. Somebody might go with Dan Quinn because they're familiar with him being an NFL head coach. They've seen him do it before. They've seen him go to a Super Bowl before. So that you can at least say that you might have questions about Dan Quinn, but you know that he understands what the job entails.
Right.
With Frank Smith, Frank, of course, has never done that before. And you have the extra bonus of Mike McDaniels is an offensive wizard. He's the guy that's going to get all the credit there. And how much is Frank Smith involved in the play calling? He's obviously involved in like the game plan, scheming, designing the plays, all that stuff. But how much is he involved in the play calling? That might be an issue. Or is he going to go out and get his own offensive coordinator who's going to call plays? A lot of offensive guys tend to not like that. They like to go out there and have the headset on themselves. So there are question marks there. But he is a brilliant guy in a brilliant offense. But you also have other questions. Like, man, that team's loaded on the offensive side of the ball. Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Devin Achane. So Frank Smith might be a guy, and only time's going to tell. But honestly, there's a lot there. And, of course, Ben Johnson with the Lions. I like him a lot. But, again, he's going to be new to that job of head coach. And he's a young guy, and he is following in this trend that the NFL has where they're hiring young guys to do these jobs. and it's working out for a lot. And it's easy to look for the success stories, and you see McDaniels in Miami and his success. But when you look at Brandon Staley, he was supposed to be one of those guys,
right? That didn't work,
and it didn't work. So it's not something that's 100% guaranteed.
Yeah, and if you look at first off, Frank Smith reminds me a little bit of Dan Campbell. You just kind of look at him, but if you look at his experience, it's just he had 2021 with the Chargers, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks there. We will answer those, and we will talk on the other side about the best NFL jobs available for some of these coaches and others next. Daily Blender, 1580 The Fanatic.
Drowning in IRS debt? If you can't afford to pay your IRS debt due to economic hardship, you can now be free of IRS collection efforts by taking advantage of a special IRS tax hardship program. This program allows Americans who owe the IRS to resolve their delinquent tax debt once and for all. In some cases, maybe even reducing what you owe significantly. An open phone line has been established by Community Tax for consumers to call and see if they qualify. Simply dial 800-251-2305. If you owe back taxes to the IRS and cannot afford to pay them back or have years of unfiled tax returns, help is standing by. Just call the Community Tax Helpline today at 800-251-2305 for the help that you need. Don't take on the IRS alone. They can attack your wages, savings, pension, home, and even your Social Security check. Call 800-251-2305 to see if you qualify. That's 800-251-2305.
Hey, I came as fast as I could. What's wrong?
Everything's okay. I just need you to know I'm glowing up.
You just texted SOS Get Here Now.
And I stand by that because I switched to Cricket and got the all-new Motorola Razr. I have entered my flip era, and I am glowing up.
I'm going to go back home.
I support that.
Switch to Cricket and get the all-new Motorola Razr for $199.99. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Must open a new line on a $60 a month voice plan. First month service charge and tax due at sale. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See CryptoWireless.com for details.
Greg Clark Automotive Specialist, located on the southwest corner of Bethany Home and 19th Avenue, servicing Valley automobiles for 44 years. And we're offering our fall inspection on the belts, water pump, radiator, and hoses. Also, our brake service inspection, recommended every year to prevent repairs and ensure top performance. For guaranteed family touch service, contact us at 602-246-2881. Highly rated by Google. Online at GregClarkAutomotive.com. Mention the Fanatic to get 10% off.
Life is full of bright moments, but sometimes those moments can seem too far away. Trained and caring crisis specialists in Arizona can assist you with any situation, big or small. Free and confidential help is only one text away, day or night. Text the word HOPE to 4HOPE. That's HOPE to 44673. These moments matter, and so do you. This message is sponsored by Solari Crisis and Human Services.
Will Shakespeare here. Back in my day, I invented over 1,700 slang words like swagger, bedazzled, and my personal favorite, besmirch. But even I have trouble understanding slang words like yeet or bougie or
this is fire.
Actually, it is extremely smooth Shakespeare vodka.
Okay, boomer.
See what I mean? But there is one word that describes the pure quadruple distilled spirit crafted from an 8th century Polish recipe the first time you try it.
So lit.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Shakespeare vodka. So lit.
KQFN Tempe.
Also transmitting on K25CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM.
And K240U Fountain Hills at 95.9 FM.
Quiet, people, settle down.
Because it's time.
Time for what?
Showtime.
When does it start?
Right now. 3, 2, 1.
Let's get on with the show. Let's do it.
Welcome back to the Daily Blender. You're listening to 1580 The Fanatic. We are broadcasting live from the Harmon Solar Studios. I'm Keon Rose. I think you've noticed by now there is no Jeffrey, no Randy. They ain't here. So you got us. And I was going to say you're going to like it, but that's up to you, quite frankly. I hope you do. But yeah, I can't make you like it, I guess. I was going to say you're going to like it, but,
You're going to love it. And if you don't, we're going to have an issue.
Well, there you go. You got Ralph saying the things that
you want to say.
Yeah, harder for me to say. I try to be too nice sometimes. I'm only mean when I'm grouchy, which is not as often as most people think.
When you ask Jeffrey and Randy, they say different, but anyway.
Yeah, no, they do say different. I don't know what gave them that impression. Me raise my voice. When have you ever? So Hefty Lefty is on the text line. And by the way, the text line is 888-368-1580. Hefty Lefty says, Al sounded like he really enjoyed talking about the Sphere, which compared to the game is a much more interesting thing for him to have to sit there and talk about.
Yeah, it is.
Because he did not want to be talking about the game. It just he sounded miserable when he had to talk about actual football. Text line is freezing up here, so we're going to refresh that there before we get back to it. But we were talking about some of these NFL coaching openings and what jobs were good, what jobs were bad. Not necessarily going to rank them or anything, but we do have a handful of jobs, a number of different situations, teams in different spots. And we're going to get to that. And of course, we'd love to hear from you on the text line. What do you think about some of these jobs as we go through them? Fish Tank says, can I just say Justin Herbert is severely overrated? That is all. And I don't agree with that.
No, I don't either.
I think that Justin Herbert is somebody who has been asked to do just a lot on a team that hasn't been healthy. It's a team where the play calling, Kellen Moore was supposed to come in and make things better. That was not the case this year. He didn't make them much worse, but in some of these games where you wanted to see them be more creative, push the ball down the field, it didn't exactly happen. And some of that, of course, is Mike Williams just got immediately injured to start the year, which also feels like it happens every year. And I don't know that I can put all of the blame of that on Justin Herbert. He does have some growing to do. I don't think that I'm going to sit here and say that Justin Herbert is some kind of perfect quarterback, but I like Justin Herbert, and I think that he can still be really awesome in the NFL.
I mean, Fish Tank, look at his career stats. I mean, come on. He's a 67% completion, over 17,000 yards, 114 TDs, 42 picks, 95.7% QB rating. I mean, those are pretty good numbers for a young guy.
And
those are really good numbers for a young guy.
Those are really good numbers. And it's not like they're garbage time points. They're the Chargers. They're always, this is the position that the Chargers are in every single Sunday of my life. They are down 4 points. There's 2 minutes left. They can't kick a field goal to do anything. It has to be a touchdown. And they don't have timeouts. Like that's I don't know, just from all the way going back all the way to Phillip Rivers, it just feels like that's the Chargers every Sunday. And then, something stupid happens. Someone fumbles the football or there's a penalty and the clock runs off and then 60 minutes is starting. And that's the end of your Sunday afternoon.
And I would say, oh, by the way, if you look at the last 3 years of Tua, Herbert's got better stats. So what do you think about Tua? Do you think that he's this great quarterback, Fish Tank? If you do, then how can you say that Herbert isn't when he actually has better stats?
So I'm sure Fish Tank's going to come back at you with something.
Yeah,
there.
just saying. Plus, he doesn't wear that nasty little uniform that you guys have.
So oh my God. Just taking shots at Fish Tank now.
Yeah, it's time to.
Well, to be fair, Fish Tank has written exactly 2 songs about you and your team, but also about you. Yeah. Chief Skull says Herbert is Herbert to the Sea Hags. Lol. Ralph just admitted Geno sucks. I think Ralph just admitted that he thinks Herbert is better than Geno, which I don't think is
right. That's what I admitted. And Geno's older, and Herbert's young.
Yeah. Like I think the Seahawks are going to have to figure out their quarterback position eventually, and
they're going to draft one this year.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, you might as well. There are going to be guys going into the second round that are really
good guys. I mean, Bo Nix and Penix. I mean, there's guys they're going to get.
Yeah, so I'm not. I don't know. I'm not worried about that, but I don't think that that's an admission of Geno sucking so much as Geno had his renaissance of his career in the middle of his 30s. That's usually the worst time for that to happen because your career's about over as far as, NFL quarterbacking goes. Like any little injury to your arm and you're basically toast. Tihua says the Dolphins OC still needs to prove himself. McDaniels calls the plays, kind of how Kenny Dillingham had to go to Oregon to prove himself despite being the OC at Florida State under Mike Norvell. And that's not a bad point to make because we're seeing it right now in Washington with my Commanders and Eric Bieniemy. There were so many questions about who calls the plays in Kansas City. How involved is Bieniemy? Was it Andy Reid? And then Eric Bieniemy is now in Washington. Essentially, he is the assistant head coach and offensive coordinator. He calls the plays and he basically runs the entire offense and makes all the personnel decisions. Ron Rivera gave him more power than most offensive coordinators get in that role, but that's his opportunity right now to prove himself. I think he's doing a pretty good job, honestly.
Do you think maybe he's gone at the end of the year, though?
I think he might be, just because it's just new ownership, and I think that they want to bring in their own people. And Josh Harris is a guy that's really big into numbers, so he's going to be looking at like which offenses have performed a certain way. I don't know if Bieniemy is like a lock to stay on board. Maybe if the new head coach, when he's putting his staff together, still wants Bieniemy to be the offensive coordinator, for continuity, then that makes sense. But
maybe he goes to the Chargers.
I think he's gone. Maybe Bieniemy does go to the Chargers. I don't know what Dean Spanos is thinking or looking at. I would like to see the Chargers hire an offensive coach. I will say that. Whenever there's a young quarterback who's developing, with the way things work in this league and how closely a lot of these offensive coaches work with their quarterbacks, especially the young ones, I do like that as a hire a little bit better. Mr. Wilbur says, wow, I feel like I'm listening to NFL football. Talk with Keon and Ralph, a brand new station. There's no longer just a solar channel. This is Super Solar. Thanks, Mr. Wilbur.
Super Solar.
It's a compliment. So
I'll take it. Whenever I get a compliment, which is very rare.
And from Mr. Wilbur, which is even rarer. Yeah, you just go ahead and take it. Because for every time that I have gotten a compliment from Mr. Wilbur, I've also been roasted by Mr. Wilbur. I will absolutely take this. And I also refuse to go where Randy and Jeffrey go.
Yeah, no, I will never do that either.
I just can't do it. I know Mr. Wilbur is cool with it and everything, but man,
I told you they're going to hell.
It is hard for me to say those words out loud. Just go out there and make a blind joke about Mr. Wilbur. I don't have it in me, Mr. Wilbur. I don't. Big George says, Ralph, thank you for your insightful analysis on Dean Spanos and the situation. You're absolutely right, by the way. Dean Spanos didn't try to stay in San Diego. He wanted a new waterfront stadium in downtown San Diego, which didn't get the 2/3 vote. But he would have tried to just renovate Qualcomm Stadium. He would have gotten the votes. Now he's in LA where nobody cares about the Chargers. So sad.
Yeah, I think you're right on. And you know what? Qualcomm wasn't a bad place to go play. I used to go down there every year to watch the Seahawks play back in the AFC days. And they could have renovated that stadium and it would have been It was a great location, easy to get to. I never understood that, but it was all about money, obviously. But I agree with you 100%.
It's the waterfront stadium is trendy. It's nice.
Yeah, it's trendy, but who cares?
But it's you run a football team, you know what I mean? Like you're not selling property. It doesn't have to be waterfront.
Traffic getting down to that waterfront stadium, it would be horrendous.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things about having a stadium that is located in the middle of a place is that you can leave from all four directions, north, south, east, and west.
Yeah, Qualcomm was good for that.
If you put it on the water, you can only leave from the side that's not facing the water.
Yeah, exactly. You lose the whole side.
Yeah, and then on top of that, San Diego already has horrific traffic. So you're just adding to the whole miserable experience for everybody. So yeah, no, it'll be pretty while they're in there, but then they have to go home after. Just saying, Dean, figure it out.
Exactly.
The Raven Kid said, I don't love that a Tua supporter just called Justin Herbert overrated. So wow, we've got texter on texter violence going back and forth on this text line now, because now you got the Raven Kid going at Fish Tank, and that's insane. I don't think any of those guys are overrated for what it's worth.
But I agree with I can't believe I'm going to say this. I agree with Raven Kid.
We're making all kinds of history out there today.
Something else going on, man.
Florida Mustard says, keep it up, y'all. This talk is money. Well, we appreciate that, man. We are out here doing our best. I swear to God, I'll get to this topic here that I teased about 30 minutes ago. Fish Tank says, I think Tua and Herbert are about the same. This is where my frustration stems from. Herbert has played 13 more games. My problem is people act like Herbert is some kind of god, and like Keon just did, he gets all the excuses, and then Tua is labeled just a system quarterback. And if he has one bad game, everyone craps all over him. He's trash. For the record, Tua's 2-1 against Herbert. And to be clear, I don't think Tua's an amazing QB, but I do think he's good, which is what I think Herbert is, just good.
Well, I think Tua is good. Now, first of all, Keon didn't crap on Tua. He actually said he liked Tua. So I'm not sure where that.
Yeah,
came
I
from,
think
but-
he was saying that I was giving Herbert all the excuses. there.
Okay.
But like when people were going after Tua early, I gave the same leeway to Tua. I don't think Tua's a system quarterback.
I don't either.
But I also don't think that distinction matters very much, which we'll also talk about because we got some Brock Purdy drama
I
to
don't
bring
like
up.
But could you imagine Herbert in that Miami offense?
Yeah, I mean it would be ridiculous.
It would be stupid. I think his numbers would
and it's
be
already
crazy.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's why I think he's better than Tua. I think his numbers would be better.
And I don't know because there's so much room there. I think that Herbert has the much bigger arm. That opens up a whole lot more of what you can do. But Tua is just pinpoint accurate back there. I mean, it's just the guy doesn't miss. So no, I mean, I personally am not one to turn on Tua the moment he has a bad game or anything like that, because I've been basically a Tua supporter since he was back at Alabama. I've just always liked the dude and the way he carries himself and the way that he approaches the game. All of that stuff I think is just phenomenal. So for me, with Herbert and Tua, it's like a 1A, 1B kind of thing. Like I'm not interested in when you get to a certain level of good quarterback, build around the guy and his skill set. And
Exactly.
we don't have to sit there and go. And I only they were drafted in the top 5 together, so they're going to always be compared. But I personally don't get the point of that, because ultimately, if you put Justin Herbert with his talents in a situation that is not dysfunctional, he's going to perform well. I believe that. And I believe the same about Tua.
I think you hit it on the head. It's all about the situation. I mean, I could take Drew Lock and put him on the Niners, and he'd be a stud. It's about what's around you and about the system you're running. I mean, so you got to really think about that stuff. Troy Aikman wasn't a great quarterback, but the system fit him perfectly and made him look amazing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just, to me, being a system quarterback is it's just not the worst thing you can be. But I'm not going to get ahead of the show here because we will be able to get into that a little bit later on. Because we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it. So let's see. Beer Bob says, didn't the old Chargers Stadium in San Diego have their parking lots flood constantly? Oh, that I actually don't know.
I don't know that either. I mean, when I was there, they weren't flooded, so it doesn't rain much in San Diego. I mean, it rains a little bit, but
yeah. So I don't know about that. I've never been to San Diego. Ralph's been, and he's disagreeing.
I liked it. I thought it was a good stadium. I liked how you easy access in and out, and I thought it was a good experience.
I don't know. It always looked good on TV. Like there are some stadiums. There's one in DC that they just look like a dump even on TV.
And the fans were great, man. They're always fun to mess with and have a good time with. I mean, I always loved that experience.
Yeah. Whistling Gerbil says they shouldn't have left San Diego. They thought the stadium was bad, but obviously didn't look at Oakland. Also, Pierce and the Raiders just put the Chargers back into a rebuild.
Yeah.
I mean, when nothing says you're not even close, like getting 63 points dropped on your team by a team that didn't score any the week before. You start asking all kinds of questions like, how close were we ever when something like that happens? And then Lost Toby says, nice Mickey Mouse sweater, Ralph.
Mickey Mouse sweater?
Yeah, I think he's referring to your 2020.
This was given to me by somebody in the Dodgers organization. A minor league player actually gave it to me. It was a gift, so I like the sweater, and it's a World Series sweater, which you don't have. So
yeah, he's just talking about the sweater and that it's 2020 and that everybody has to act like all the other teams in baseball didn't play under those conditions. Like it's almost like people would have rather no sport's been played in 2020.
I mean, the way I look at it, my shirt says World Series champions. Yours says World Series participant. So we can move on.
Oh boy, yeah. And with that, the text line is cleaned up, and we are going to get back to our regularly scheduled programming here. So we've got some NFL jobs out there that are open right now. I'm sure they're going to be more open later on, but these are the ones that are available at the moment. I got the list from Bleacher Report. They ranked it, but I'm not going to rank it because I don't really care to. I don't think that's necessarily as important. What is important is whether or not the job is even a good job to begin with. So we will start with the Raiders because Antonio Pierce is the interim head coach. He's not the head coach. And even though the team clearly likes playing for him and there's a fire there, I don't know if he's done enough to say he's the guy. And long term, once that initial rush of playing for the new guy is over, can Antonio Pierce lead this team to the playoffs, lead them to beyond that, maybe get to a title game, maybe get to a Super Bowl? I don't know that they think he's the guy. So how good is that Raiders job?
I think it's a pretty good job because they've kind of cleaned house a little bit already. You know, you have some good guys potentially on the team. You've got Max Crosby on the defensive side. You've got an aging Devontae Adams on the offensive side. I think the biggest question mark that they have right now is can they find a quarterback in the draft or through free agency? And I think this job is probably going to be very attractive to the experienced guy as well as the newcomer guy, right? I think there's a lot there. I think it's a great facility. It's a great place to want to coach. It's a historic organization that hasn't been able to do much in a long time. So there's a lot of opportunity there. I personally, I like the job. I think it's very attractive. It's going to depend on the relationship with the GM and how much money buying power you're going to have from ownership to be able to make some really good moves. Because I think you've got some key players as it is right now, but I think if you bring in a couple key points, and I think critical as quarterback, you got to make a decision at quarterback. What are you going to do there, and go and build around it? So I like the job.
Yeah, I think it's a good job too. There's talent there. I do like their defense, like what that defense can be, especially if they add some more pieces to it. I think that defense could be really good. And I don't think that their offense is that far off. I mean, right. I don't know how much they believe in Aiden O'Connell in that building.
I don't think they do.
Yeah, but he can be at the very least a nice backup.
Yeah.
And where they're drafting, you know, again, this draft has so many quarterbacks in it. You'd be crazy to they're picking at 10. You'd be crazy to not at least think about it. You know, especially
there'll be a guy at 10.
There'll be a guy at 10. If you really need something else or want somebody else, there'll be another person at in the second round as well. There'll be plenty in the second round. The last mock draft I looked at said that J.C. Latham was the guy that they mocked to the Raiders, the offensive tackle from Alabama, which can't really go wrong there. Get yourself a guy that can play that position for the next 10 to 15 years and protect whoever it is that you draft while you're figuring that stuff out. Raider fans, let me know. I mean, if that's what you want, is there a quarterback that maybe you've got your eye on? What do you want to see your team do in the draft? But I do like the job that team is for a potential head coach.
I agree.
So the next job that's coming up, I like a whole lot less. I want to know what you think, Ralph. The Patriots. The Patriots job is tough because I don't think that they have a lot of talent. I think that they're just very depleted. I don't believe that Bill Belichick's done a very good job of drafting over in recent years. And he's Bill Belichick. So on top of the fact that the roster doesn't have a whole lot, you've got to follow this 20-year run of 6 championships, making the playoffs just about every year, and we just talked about how fans don't like to go backwards. There was a time where Patriot fans would have been absolutely thrilled with just showing up in the playoffs. But after that run with all the Super Bowls and all the great players that have passed through there, not just Tom Brady, but Teddy Bruschi and Randy Moss and Gronk, like they were a factory there for a while. So following Bill Belichick, people are going to expect you, when you get the team up and running, they're not going to expect you to just make the playoffs. They're going to want to win rings. So expectations, talent, all that other stuff. Ralph, what do you think about the Patriots job?
So I think this is a very interesting job. I'm not a big fan of it. Like you just said, following a guy that's done what Belichick has done, that's almost suicide. I mean, that's going to be a tough gig to follow. I start thinking of all organizations where they had a great coach or a good coach. I'm not going to compare some of these guys to Belichick, because what Belichick has done is amazing. But I can even think, okay, my own situation, the Seahawks, Mike Holmgren was the first coach that really came in here and had really good success. And Pete Carroll had to follow him, but he was the right guy to follow him, right? He took what he did and built on it. To follow what they're doing with this team, I mean, this is the most untalented roster that they've ever had under Belichick. There's no talent. I mean, if you can try to think of somebody, I mean, you have nothing at quarterback. You have nothing.
They drafted Christian Gonzalez, the corner out of Oregon, and
He's
that
been
is
on the
the
IR
only.
though, right?
Yeah, he's been on the IR. But I'm saying, like, moving forward, that's the only guy I would keep.
Yeah, I mean, this is a major rebuild where the fans and the owner are gonna have to have a lot of patience. And this is the kind of job, like you said before, where if I'm coming in, I need 5 years to build this.
Yeah,
this is gonna take time. This isn't an overnight thing. So this will be a 4 to 5 year job to actually say, okay, I think we're in a position now where we can do some damage and follow the Bill Belichick methodology. Get the many draft picks as you can get, find the right guys and bring them in and have everybody compete for their job and just build from there. But you got to eventually figure out who your quarterback is. It's not Mac Jones and it's not Bailey Zappi. It's just not those guys. So I mean, for me going into this draft, I'm going to go after a quarterback. There's just so many good quarterbacks in this draft with talent. You probably start there. But I know a lot of really good coaches have come in and started with building an offensive line because that's probably the most critical thing you want to do. Get a line together that you can protect whoever you're going to put back there. I know that was Holmgren's approach. That's been Pete Carroll's approach, some other guys too. It's always a smart approach. So you just got to figure out which way you're going to go.
And I'll say one last thing about the Patriots job before I throw us to break here. But Drake May is the guy that's projected to go number 2, and the Patriots are right there. I would take it.
I like Drake May.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. And if the Bears decide to be insane and take Drake May, well, then you get Caleb Williams. But for whatever it's worth, you should never plan on being this bad ever again. So just take the quarterback that's there, right? Like you build around whoever it is. Normally, I would say, yeah, build around offensive line. And if you were drafting 8th or 9th, okay, but you're second, and you don't, like, a lot of teams, even the worst teams aren't so bad that they're, at the top of the draft year after year. This is such a loaded quarterback draft. 1 and 2 look genuinely good. I think you take Drake May and don't even worry about it. That's like the one real bright spot I think that this job has is the high draft pick and the ability to get a quarterback of the future that has a ton of talent and a really good pedigree that you can build around. And if you develop him right, you might be able to build another juggernaut.
You just can't follow the Carolina Panther methodology of get a good quarterback and put nothing in front of him.
Yeah. And that was insane by the Panthers to be at 9th and then trade up and give away basically the team that Bryce Young needed to be successful is now playing Chicago. I mean, like that's obviously a massive problem. So there are a number of these other jobs available. We've got Bears, Panthers, Commanders, and of course the newly opened Los Angeles Chargers. We're going to talk about that here on the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-364-1031 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-364-1031. That's 800-364-1031. What do you have to lose? Call 800-364-1031. Again, 800-364-1031.
Greg Clark Automotive Specialist, located on the southwest corner of Bethany Home and 19th Avenue, servicing Valley automobiles for 44 years. And we're offering our fall inspection on the belts, water pump, radiator, and hoses. Also, our brake service inspection, recommended every year to prevent repairs and ensure top performance. For guaranteed family touch service, contact us at 602-246-2881. Highly rated by Google. Online at GregClarkAutomotive.com. Mention the Fanatic to get 10% off.
Don't be fooled by the people you meet on social media. It may start as an innocent conversation, but anyone who tries to sell you pills is nothing more than a drug dealer. And if you think tiny pills can't do much harm, think again. Fentanyl can end it all. Know the truth about fentanyl at learnmoreaz.org. Don't be fooled. Don't be faked out. Visit learnmoreaz.org. This message is sponsored by the Substance Abuse Coalition Leaders of Arizona.
Jeffrey O'Brien here, and congratulations. You just made it through the hottest summer in Arizona history. No lie. The only proof you need is in that electric bill. If you don't have solar, I wonder how bad it's going to get next year. You need to call Harmon Solar today. Harmon Solar could save you over 80% off your electric bills. They're a locally owned, family-owned company. Call Harmon Solar for a free estimate. 800-281-3189. That's 800-281-3189, or go to harmonsolar.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Ken Barkley here, reminding you to check out You Better You Bet. Why, you ask? Well, because we bring the fun, the insight, and all the wagertainment you need. Plus, hopefully, we win a couple bets along the way. From up-to-the-minute breakdowns of backdoor covers, bad beats, and the cheers and tears that come with them, obviously. Plus, betting analysis from some of the best minds in the sports wagering world. Join myself and Nick Costos and tune into You Better You Bet. Weekdays from noon to 3 on Arizona's sports betting station 1580 and 99.3, The Fanatic.
Welcome back to the Daily Blender. I'm Keon. I'm alongside Ralph from Harmon Solar, and we are chugging along on a Friday afternoon, talking about some of these coaching openings and whether or not they're good jobs. We've somehow only managed to get through 2 of them so far, Raiders and Patriots. We've got Bears coming up next, but a lot of the reason why this is moving pretty slowly is you guys on the text line, which is always the priority for me there. So we'll get back to that. Text line, by the way, 888-368-1580. And Dodger Danny said a little while ago, is somebody still crying about the Dodgers winning the 2020 World Series? Let it go already. They're the champs. Somebody right. Get that texter a tissue.
Amen.
And now, my thing with the whole 2020 championships, not just the Dodgers one and the Lakers one, is, to me, everyone keeps talking about how easy a championship that was. And I only have one question, which is, if it was so easy, why didn't anybody else win it?
Exactly.
Everybody was playing under the same conditions, and one team won it. That's just what it was. And the way that people complain about this, man, it's like, I was just happy that we had sports back on in 2020. I didn't really care about, what the circumstances were. I will. The only thing that I can really think of with the Lakers is that the time off let them get healthy, so they could go on that run. But everybody had the same time off. So I don't know. If everybody's playing under the same conditions, then what? I don't get what the issue is. That's just my personal gripe with having to hear that literally all the time. Las Toby says, I have a few sweaters, 8 of them. Now, I don't know in reference to what sweater, championship sweaters, Las Toby?
Must be saying that 8 of them. So
what
team would that be?
What team would that be? I actually don't know. And are we still talking baseball?
Are you talking high school? What are you talking about?
I mean, let us know, Las Toby. What's your team again? Beer Bob says, I think Al Michaels said it last night, that the Raiders were just trying to make up for not scoring any points the week before. Well, I think that they went and overdid it. In the last 5 games, the Raiders are actually top 10 in scoring in the league over the last 5. And it's all last night, basically. I mean, that is how bad the Chargers were. They just, boy, awful. Megatron says they didn't keep Bisaccia. They aren't keeping Antonio Pierce. And yeah, I do think Bisaccia did a better job, in my opinion. He was definitely more steady. And I agree with that, Megatron. Hefty Lefty says, wait, you don't think Farva is a long-term quarterback for the Raiders? No, Hefty Lefty. I don't think Trooper Rod Farva is a good fit for the Raiders. Maybe as a backup, but he's a loose cannon, you guys. He's a loose cannon. Flappy Mac says, great show, guys. Ralph, I'm on the Eagles. No points. Tell me why I should be worried.
I think you should be worried because the Seahawks are playing them. I think you should be worried because you're kind of in a funk like we are, right? You've been struggling here the last few weeks, and
two losses in a row for Philly.
Two losses in a row. I mean, you haven't looked good in the losses. I think Seattle is obviously they've lost 4 in a row, but they haven't looked bad every week. They've actually looked okay. They look like they've kind of figuring some things out. I think this is a tough game. I like I said yesterday, I think if Witherspoon's in this game, I think you lose the game. I would be very worried if you see Witherspoon. But other than that, I mean, I'm on the fence with, do I want Seattle to win and get a playoff shot, or do I want them to lose and get a better pick? I don't know. At this point, I'm just,
Yeah, you're in that kind of no man's land of the team's clearly talented, but it needs some more. Yeah.
It needs something.
I think the pass rush is where they really need some help because it's wasting the talent of Witherspoon and those guys playing in the secondary because they're not getting a consistent pressure on anybody.
Yeah, I mean they're getting a lot of sacks though, which is interesting.
Yeah, and this is why sacks are kind of a misleading stat. Yeah. Not that they don't matter, but when you look at sacks as a stat, it doesn't necessarily tell you that the quarterback was under pressure all day because sometimes the guy's under pressure. Like teams can get no sacks, but the quarterback's running for his life. That's what you need.
I think the talent's there. I think they need a defensive coordinator. I'm not sold on who we have, and I'd like to see somebody else. So that's just me.
Yeah, and so the draft isn't going to help you there. So like maybe you just try to win and then make that offseason move. And I don't know how attached Pete Carroll is to staff members. Like is Pete Carroll ruthless like that? Like would he just be like, yeah, no, you're not getting it done. Get out of here.
No, I think he hangs on to someone a little too long out of loyalty sometimes. I mean, Bevel's a great example of that.
Yeah.
I
think, God.
Yeah. I mean,
that guy should have been gone ages ago.
Right? So, I mean, I think he's got the right offensive coordinator in place. I just defensively, the guy, I know it's only his second year and they're better this year, but they're better because it's a talented group. That's a really talented group. They're a top 5 group, but they're not playing like that. And I think it's the scheme. I think it's the coordinator. He needs to make the change.
Well, let's get back to these job openings in the NFL, listed on Indeed.com. The Bears, they have a job opening potentially. Obviously, they haven't fired anybody, but it seems like all the buzz around is that Matt Eberflus ain't gonna make it. That's
right. He needs to go.
That's what the word on the street is, and I tend to agree. So with the Bears, is this job actually a good job?
This is a good job. I think this is a real, I hate to say it, but I think it's a really good job. I think Ryan Poles has done a great job filling holes that they've needed on both sides of the ball. I still think they need a little more. They've got to make a decision on Justin Fields. And and I don't like Justin Fields. I've never liked him even in college, but I'll give him a little defense. In his defense, I think Eberflus has done a really bad job helping him. I don't think he's done a good job developing him. I don't think the game plan meets some of his skill levels sometime. I think they got to figure out what he is. They haven't been good for him, but he hasn't really worked in their scheme. But I think this job is actually better than people think. And I think the Bears are actually closer than people think. Again, they've done a really good job filling some of the holes. They need to do a little bit more, but make a decision on a quarterback. Now, for me, with the roster that you have in place, which I think is pretty good, go get Caleb Williams. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Trade away Justin Fields. I've been hearing rumors, and God help me, I've been hearing rumors about him going to Seattle, which really scares the hell out of me because I don't want him there. And maybe he would be better there. I don't know. But I think you trade him out, you bring in Caleb Williams, and with that, and maybe you need to bring in maybe 1 or 2 more veteran pieces on the offensive side to give Caleb some help. And I think you got a good team there.
Yeah, I think so too. They've got a ton of draft picks like that. If for no other reason, the amount of picks that they have in the next 2 drafts is insane. So there's an opportunity to get a ton of talent. You've got the Panthers pick this year, which means obviously you have the number 1 pick. I agree with you. I would just take Caleb Williams and not even worry about it. And I think that there are going to be teams that think that they might be able to do something with Justin Fields. I didn't hear about the Seattle report, but I've just been seeing a lot of stuff about Justin Fields and Atlanta, which I think would be an amazing pick.
Yeah.
Because I think he's way better than Desmond Ridder. And
Yeah.
they're not going to ask him to do nearly as much as the Bears are asking him to do because Arthur Smith already hates throwing the football. Like he wants to run anyway. So at that point, what difference could it possibly make? Go ahead and get Justin Fields if you're Atlanta. Atlanta's already picking in a spot where they're not going to be able to get one of the top quarterbacks in this draft. They're at 11, right behind the Raiders. Like if they wanted to reach for somebody, I guess a lot of people think Jaden Daniels might be a top 10 quarterback. If they want to reach for Jaden Daniels, maybe they could try and do that. But other than that, no, just go ahead and move on from Justin Fields. I don't think it's worked. Eberflus has done a horrible job of helping him. I agree with that too. Eberflus, and I didn't mean to plan this show with a theme, but it does keep coming back to, he's a guy that should never have been a head coach, because when they hired him, like he was just immediately not interested in what was happening on the offensive side of the ball. And he was really good about his defense, but he wasn't interested in making sure that, wait, what if we had a quarterbacks coach that really worked with Justin Fields and said, hey, okay, let's work on this footwork because it's not good.
Horrible.
He goes through his reads still really slowly. Like I thought at this point we start getting a little faster with that, with the experience. It just hasn't happened. And I think Justin Fields needs a new situation that's not going to demand that much of him, and kind of start over. I think with the Bears, you got Caleb Williams, who's somebody who can process information really well, who can make plays off of schedule. Like just for Caleb Williams, I think it's a good job. I think when you start looking at all the other picks, the Bears have another pick at 6. A lot of people have Malik Neighbors from LSU mocked there. And look, so you immediately get him a weapon to add to DJ Moore, to add to this offensive line that you've been building. Look, this job could potentially be a fantastic job moving forward for anybody that wants it. All right. Carolina Panthers are this. I hate this job. I'm not even I was gonna try and figure out a way to be kind of subtle about it and be clever about introducing this, and maybe there's been a little mystery about how I feel about this. No, I hate this job. I think David Tepper, in my opinion, he is the worst owner in the NFL. He's meddling. He doesn't let coaches do their job. He knew what Frank Reich was working with when he hired him. He knew who Frank was when he hired him. Frank was supposed to be a guy to work with the young quarterback that you just gave up the farm to draft. And then David Tepper reached his hands in and said, no, I don't want this anymore. I don't think you're winning enough quickly enough, as though anybody could. Like this is, I don't care who, if you go back in time and get prime Tom Landry, he's not winning here because nobody is.
Nope.
This is a horrible situation. And of course, the draft picks that they had, they've given to the Bears. So now they don't even have that. No, the Panthers' job is terrible. Like if you're a coach that this might be your only opportunity to be a head coach, and you're thinking you might want to work a miracle to see if it can be your long-term job, hey, go for it. But everybody else that has other options somewhere else, no, I think this job's terrible.
This is the worst job on the list. It doesn't get any worse than this. I agree with you on Tepper. Tepper is the worst owner in football, maybe the worst owner in sports. How many coaches has he gone through in 5 years? 6, I believe.
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. Hold on.
Yeah, there's been 6 full-time and interim coaches, so 6 total coaches. This will be 7 in 5 years because he took over the team in 2018.
Yeah.
And you're right. He tries to micromanage the team. He's got his hands on it. He kind of reminds me of a guy that lives in Dallas, just all over the business he shouldn't be in. He's a terrible, terrible owner. You got this number 1 pick. You got Bryce Young sitting there, and you've got nobody blocking for him. He needs a line, or the kid's going to get killed. So you've got to get him help. But you only got, I think they've only got 2 picks in the first 3 or 4 rounds this next year because of everything they're giving away. So I'm just echoing everything you've already said. I mean, this is a horrible job. They're not going to find a good coach that's going to want it. If I was an elite coach, I wouldn't want to go there. Why would you want to? So I think this is going to be like this continuing saga for the next few years of, as long as David Tepper's there, this is just not going to be a good thing for the Carolina Panthers. And poor Bryce Young, who's going to have to sit there and suffer through this and eventually probably leave or get hurt and not be able to play anymore.
Or just be undeveloped.
Yeah,
like that happens too. I mean, I root for a team that has done that to many quarterbacks where they've drafted guys who could have been really good, but they never developed them properly. And so the result is you have a guy that just is okay. And you want to get people up to speed when they're younger. Once they get older, you don't have time to teach a 30-year-old quarterback what to do.
This job has Cliff Kingsbury written all over it.
I mean, if he wants to come back,
he might be the only guy that would take it.
He might be the only guy. And even he might not do that. I mean, he got to coach at a place where the owner let him have the longest possible leash. I don't think the Cliff Kingsbury wants to jump into all that fire, unless he wants two buyout contracts, in which case, go for it.
Why not?
But if you want to actually be successful, look, it's rough. You're not going to be able to get a whole lot done with a team that's this incomplete. It's going to take, this is another one of those, you're going to need all 5 years to even just be okay. We're not even talking about 5 years and then you're a playoff contender. It's like 5 years and then like you're back to league average because you've won a game. And without the picks to get better, how do you rebuild that? Yeah, Panthers' job is just awful. So don't have to keep beating that dead horse. We're up against the break again. We've got 2 more teams left on this list. We've got the Commanders. We've got the Chargers. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to get into a little bit of fallout from the Shohei Ohtani signing with the Dodgers, because now you have a whole lot of people complaining about the salary cap or lack thereof in Major League Baseball and doesn't need it and all of this other stuff. And feels like sour grapes a little bit, but we'll get into all of that. You're listening to the Daily Blender here on 1580 The Fanatic.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-452-5050. That's 1-800-452-5050. Or go to SelectQuote.com. 1-800-452-5050. That's 1-800-452-5050.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save.
Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Hey, I came as fast as I could. What's wrong?
Everything's okay. I just need you to know I'm glowing up.
You just texted SOS Get Here Now.
And I stand by that because I switched to Cricket and got the all-new Motorola Razr. I have entered my flip era, and I am glowing up.
I'm going to go back home.
I support that.
Switch to Cricket and get the all-new Motorola Razr for $199.99. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Must open a new line on a $60 a month voice plan. First month service charge and tax to its sale. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
All right, so there we were, cruising through the new open-air zoo when I realized that the park was closing in like 15 minutes. That's when the afternoon took an exciting turn. Luckily, we were in my Nissan Rogue. With its powerful DC turbo engine, well, we had more than enough time to see all the animals. Whoa! And outrun a few!
Drive the Nissan Rogue. Now get the 2023 Nissan Rogue with best-in-class fuel economy among gas engines. Availability is limited. Shop at your local Nissan store or at nissanusa.com. Auto Pacific segmentation, excluding hybrids and electric vehicles. 2023 EPA fuel economy estimates from 28 city, 34 highway to 30 city, 37 highway for 2023 Nissan Rogue. As shown, Nissan Rogue Platinum all-wheel drive, 28 city, 34 highway. Actual mileage may vary.
Greg Clark Automotive Specialist, located on the southwest corner of Bethany Home and 19th Avenue, servicing Valley automobiles for 44 years. And we're offering our fall inspection on the belts, water pump, radiator, and hoses. Also, our brake service inspection, recommended every year to prevent repairs and ensure top performance. For guaranteed family touch service, contact us at 602-246-2881. Highly rated by Google. Online at GregClarkAutomotive.com. Mention the Fanatic to get 10% off.
So, what's your favorite thing about sports? The excitement, the action, or the 5-meat pizza and the six-pack? Bingo.
That's what we thought.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic, and always on at 1580thefanatic.com.
Welcome back to the Daily Blender. We're broadcasting live from the Harman Solar Studios. Joining me on the show today, Ralph from Harman Solar, and we are giving all of our takes on basically all of the fallout from last night. The Chargers got pantsed on Amazon Prime, and it was ugly. Brandon Staley got fired. That job's available. A bunch of other jobs are available, and we were going through the list of potentially available jobs and giving a yes or no. So far, we've got yes on the Raiders, no on the Patriots, yes on the Bears, no on the Panthers. And we are now at the Commanders. But before we get to that, let me clean up the text line here a little bit. Fish Tank said, what I think is interesting about the Bears is you could make this team competitive. If you could make this team competitive, you could become an absolute god in Chicago. Their expectations are so low. Be 500 for the first 2 years, get in the playoffs, you own Chicago. Yeah, if you go to the playoffs every year and then like once or twice a year you beat the Packers, I mean, you're a made man. I think as far as that goes. So, yeah, low standards, low bar there. Kyle G says, hey, guys, just got out of work. Does Staley still have a job? And I don't know if you're a Chargers fan or not, Kyle G, but you'll be pleased to know that no. He does not have a job still. He's usually when the Chargers have a game, Brandon Staley meets the day after with Dean Spanos, and that was the last time he would ever do that because they fired him. Just canned him. I'm pretty sure they were packing his stuff up at halftime, but I don't have sources saying that. That's just something that I would have done if it were me. I would have been personally Dean Spanos in his office packing his things up. But that's just me. He put out a very professional statement, though, so I'm guessing that did not happen at all. But what an awful game. Yeah. What an absolutely awful game.
Understatement.
All right, so back to this list of coaches here, or job openings for potential coaches. The Washington Commanders are, I think, in a pretty decent spot. I think this is a good job. And part of it is that they've got a ton of cap space coming. You know, they moved on from a lot of their big name guys, you know, which has made their bad defense already worse. But they were basically giving up on the season once they decided to move on from Chase Young and Montez Sweat, who are both doing well in the places that they landed. Good for them. You know, and I mean, I like those guys. They just, you know, it wasn't getting done in Washington, had to move in another direction. And Josh Harris is the other reason why I think that this is a good job. He's not known for being a meddling owner. We do have some experience with him because he owns the New Jersey Devils. He owns the Philadelphia 76ers. And as he's run those operations, they've been competitive, and he doesn't get involved in the day-to-day stuff. He hires the right people, and then he gets the hell out of the way, which I think is the best way to do this if you're going to own an NFL team. He's basically the opposite of David Tepper, which is why I like this job. I also think Sam Howell is interesting because he gives you somebody that if he pans out, he's a 5th round pick on a rookie deal. Like you just don't have to pay him. So you can put a ton of talent around him. And if it turns out, yep, you know what? Sam Howell flamed out. There's a reason why teams didn't pick him. There's a reason why he fell to the 5th round. Then you have the opportunity to move on from that and build around put another quarterback on the roster for the team that you've already built for the last guy. So I just think that there are a lot of good things working in favor of Washington. It's not a perfect job, but I think it's a good job.
Yeah, this is one of my top 2, right? I kind of, between the Bears and these are the 2 jobs that I think are the best for everything that you just said. I love the ownership group. I love the fact that the team's pretty much been gutted. You've gotten rid of some big salaries. Not totally gutted, but you've gotten rid of big salaries. You have the second most money under the cap going into 2024. There's a ton of opportunity here to start build something the way you want to build it. You need to make a decision on Sam Howell. hasn't been horrible. I don't like the amount of picks that you're seeing with him. That needs to definitely come down, and that can come down with time. But I think the kid's got a lot of talent. I think he could be your guy, and he's on that rookie contract, so you make a plan for the next couple of years and kind of make sure is he the guy or not. I like this job. I think this is a really good job. I think you're going to have a lot of support behind you with the ownership, and you've got some decent players sitting there right now, and you have the draft capital to bring in more of what you need, and you have the money to go after people in free agency. So this is a really good situation. Other than the Bears, I think this is the best job out there.
I agree. I know that I have a bias, so I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on that. Because I just for what this team can be, they still have talented young receivers with Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. The offensive line just needs just a ton of help, and honestly, that's where I would go in the draft. Washington is picking fourth, I believe. Yeah, so I would just go Olu Fashanu from Penn State or Joe Alt. I like both of them. Right. And I don't think you could necessarily go wrong with getting a premier tackle at that position when you have a guy at quarterback that you still need to figure some stuff out with. I agree that the picks need to come down for Sam Howell, but I don't know how much of that is Sam and how much of that is the fact that Eric Bieniemy simply refuses to run the football.
I think that's a big part of it.
Sam drops back like 50 times a game.
Yeah,
man.
it's ridiculous.
It's like
an arena bowl game.
Yeah, there's no balance on the offense, and I think he's been shockingly successful for how much defenses know exactly what they're going to do.
Right. You sit on that.
And he's still been able to rack up a bunch of yards, rack up a bunch of touchdowns. It's just if you throw the ball that much as a young player, the interceptions are coming too. So I think that there's definitely some work for Sam, but I like the guy, and I think that they ought to give him a shot. One more season to try and see you improve the team, and then try to see what's there moving forward. And of course, with the coach and everything else that the owner is happier with as well. And then finally, the job that just opened up last night, the Chargers. Is this a good job? Because we talked about all the stuff that's wrong with it. It's got talent, but it's not a particularly deep team. We've also talked about Justin Herbert. You've already got a guy who can be a top passer in the NFL. Sometimes inconsistent. He's been pretty injury prone lately too. Do you think the Chargers job is a good job?
I'm not sure it's a good job, but I'm not sure it's a bad job. What I mean by that is, again, we talked about this earlier. They don't have money under the cap, and they're not going to be able to do much. They're going to have to trade away some talent to be able to do any kind of movement. Otherwise, they're stuck with the roster that they have. It's not a bad roster, but it needs help. So this is going to be a really tough situation to walk into. You're going to have to make some really hard decisions on the talent that you already have that's making too much money that you can't afford anymore. So you're going to need to move some people. This is a tricky. I guess I would say this is the trickiest of all of them, I think, because it's not clear path. It's not, cut and dry where you're walking in and it's garbage and you just need to do a complete rebuild, or you're walking in and you just need one piece. You're kind of stuck with what you have unless you trade away some of what you have, and that could really hurt you, or it could help you if you're good enough to come in there and make that talent that you have better, which obviously Staley was just so bad at. So I'm kind of on the fence on this. It's not great, but it's not horrible. This really needs the right guy to come in. This is going to be tough for ownership to find this right coach. I'm not really sure who the right guy is, but I'm on the fence about how good or bad it is.
Yeah. The only thing I can say about who they should go after is I would go more offensive guy, but that's it. That's all I've got for them. I don't know who that person would be, whether it's Ben Johnson, Frank Smith, or anybody else who we've mentioned before. But yeah, the Chargers job is confusing. I'm going to say good job because of the talent that's on the roster. If it was completely depleted, but this was a playoff team last year. This was not just a playoff team. This was a playoff team that had a 27-point lead that they blew. And so that seems like a coaching thing. Like, how do you stop yourself from just bleeding away a 27-point lead?
Right.
It's not like they don't have the players to make the postseason. It's not like they don't have the talent. It's not like they're in a division where they can't compete with the other teams that are there. I know the AFC is generally stacked, not so much this year, but like generally it's a pretty tough division to make the playoffs in, or tough conference to make the playoffs in. But still, I just think that this team has enough talent. And then of course, they're not picking, at the top of the draft or anything like that, but they've got their draft picks. And there is a path forward, I think that can be clear if, like you said, the right guy comes in and gets the job.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they're in cap hell, which is interesting as well.
Yeah,
So.
and that's where like this job could be better. This could be the best job on the list, except for that.
Right. Agreed.
That makes it drop down a few spots in my opinion. So we've got a lot of stuff to get to. We are coming up to hour number 3 of the show. Hour number 2 now in the books. I've got some good news for Shohei Ohtani. We've got some Shohei Ohtani stuff to talk about in terms of the salary cap in Major League Baseball and all of that. We've got your text sitting there on the text line. Don't worry, you guys. I definitely see you. Mr. Wilbur, Big George, Florida Mustard. We're going to get to you guys. Aaron Rodgers continues to do the foolish attempt of coming back from an Achilles injury. And what even is a game manager, really? We'll get into that next here on the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
Can't sleep with this cold.
Honey.
Honey?
Honey, you need NyQuil Severe Honey.
NyQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a dreamy honey taste.
Feeling better, honey? Honey? I'll take that as a yes.
Try NyQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu symptom relief. NyQuil Severe with honey flavor. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, fever. Honeylicious, best sleep with a cold medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Greg Clark Automotive Specialist, located on the southwest corner of Bethany Home and 19th Avenue, servicing Valley automobiles for 44 years. And we're offering our fall inspection on the belts, water pump, radiator, and hoses. Also, our brake service inspection, recommended every year to prevent repairs and ensure top performance. For guaranteed family touch service, contact us at 602-246-2881. Highly rated by Google. Online at gregclarkautomotive.com. Mention the Fanatic to get 10% off.
Hey everybody, Mark Asher back to tell you about my great friends over at the Lund Mortgage Team. The Lund Mortgage Team has been doing their thing for over 2 decades in the Valley, helping thousands of people in Arizona save money on their loans, get the best rate. They're mortgage brokers. They can shop it around for you. And now more than ever, it is so important to have a mortgage professional that's been around, that's seen the high rates, low rates, everything in between, because look, there's no sugarcoating what's going on right now. The rates are higher. However, the supply and demand, the whole how many houses are for sale in Arizona and what's going on, it's gone in favor of the buyer now. So if you're going to buy a new home, it is important to go and get that rate. Whatever that rate is, it's not going to be your forever rate. That's important to think about. So lock it in, get the house of your dreams, and move on. But let the people at the Lund Mortgage Team do their job. All the heavy lifting from start to finish. They'll find you the best rate out there. Call 623-875-9940, 623-875-9940, or online, lundmortgage.com.
As we plan for our retirement, there are 4 questions we need to ask ourselves or our retirement planning advisor. How much? How long? How safe? And what cost? Let's start with how much. That is, how much income we think we'll need each and every year for the rest of our lives, including all the activities we want to enjoy during our retirement, like travel, recreation, and entertainment. Plus the cost of housing, including repair and maintenance, taxes, insurance, and utilities, as well as the cost of healthcare, including expenses not covered by Medicare.
Enjoy safe, secure lifetime income of 5 to 9% for life, depending on age and deferral period, with no fee deductions and no annuitizing. Guarantees rely on the financial strength of the insurer, so let's compare free in Scottsdale. For more, visit IQannuity.com, IQannuity.com, IQannuity.com.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K25CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM.
And K2.2 Rolling Hills at 95.9 FM.
It's time for the third hour.
All right, people, settle down because it's time.
For what?
Showtime.
When does it start?
Right now.
3, 2, 1.
Let's get on with the show.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the Daily Blender. It is hour number 3. We are broadcasting live from the Harmon Solar Studios in Scottsdale, and I am joined by Ralph Romano from Harmon Solar. I'm Keon Rose, and Randy and Jeffrey are out. They'll be back Monday. Oh, I think. I don't know. I can never promise.
Yeah, I think the Laker parade's over by then. So
yeah, the in-season tournament Laker parade.
Yeah, that'd be done.
As we all know that they attended, just for the laughs. But regardless, they'll be back Monday. I believe Jeffrey will be. I can't speak. I can't speak for Randy because nobody tells me anything around here. That's basically the running bit of information with this show. But regardless, we've got you guys on the text line 888-368-1580. And we've got some baseball stuff to get into. Little Shohei Ohtani. Some good news for Shohei Ohtani. You know, besides the $700 million contract that was given to him. His translator said something really interesting the other day that I thought didn't really get talked about a ton. So we'll get there in just a second. But first, let's get to the text line. Florida Mustard says, has the coaching timeline to grow a program become obsolete? And I really don't think so. I think that still matters because you have to have a time frame where you are trying to figure out what you're going to do at quarterback, what you're going to do with, and it depends on, you know, what the coach values the most, offense or defense. That depends on what you plan on doing with that and how you plan on doing that. Some coaches like to, you know, build a defense, for instance, back to front, start with the secondary, go on up to the defensive line, or the other way. It just depends on what your philosophy is on all of that. It matters. Now, I do think, and I think this is what you're getting at, Florida Mustard, that the owners are way more impatient now than they used to be. You used to be able to have time to say, I'm going to build you a team that's going to be competitive, and you need to give me that time. And then the owner used to actually do that, right, even if there were some struggles early. What we're finding these days is, if you're not good in 2 to 3 years or you're particularly bad, then no one is waiting for your plan to come to a development. But it still matters what the timeline is.
Yeah, and I think along with the timeline, you need to give milestones to an owner and probably say, hey, this is the things I'm looking to hit, and these are the times I'm going to hit them. And you need to have your team behind you. And I think in Brandon Staley's case, if that's what you're really getting at, is I don't think his team was behind him. I think they hated him. And he wasn't hitting his milestones. It's 2.5 years and you've gotten worse. So yeah, I mean, you're given the time if you deserve to be given the time, I think. But to Keon's point, there are some owners, I think, that are getting impatient. But what they should say is, give me a 4 to 5 years. Here's my milestones that I'm going to hit. Here's how we're going to improve over that period of time. And this is what I expect. And if you do that, then I think any owner would be okay with you. If you don't, then I think you shouldn't be there.
Yeah. And look, it's because there was a time back in the day, and part of this is just so financially driven, and you've got to think about what the fans want and a bunch of other things too. I don't think you let the fans make your decision for you, but at the same time, if you have a coach that's just losing and losing badly, and he goes in press conferences and it doesn't seem like he cares, and the optics are terrible, it doesn't even matter what his timeline is. You got to get that guy out of there. But I think of a guy like Tom Landry, who, when he was with the Cowboys in the 60s, I looked this up during the break. He had his first 6 seasons? We're all losing seasons.
Yeah.
You know, it was 1965, he went 500, and then the winning started. Tom Landry, if he were coaching today, would never have built what he was able to build with the Dallas Cowboys back in the 60s, because no owner today would have had the patience to let him do it.
Right.
And I'm not putting this all on the owners, because I'm saying this as a fan who is, you know, patiently waiting for my coach to get fired. That, you know, for Ron Rivera, it's been 4 years, and it's been 4 years of him being basically 500 every single year or just below it. And they did make the playoffs his first year there, but they were 7-9. They still weren't above 500 when he did it. Yeah, and they didn't have a chance to win a Super Bowl or anything, and they actually got worse over the time there. But if you look at what Tom Landry did, where he starts off 0-11, and then goes 4-9 the next year, do you think a guy like that in today's game survives? Because I don't.
No, I don't know. I mean, it just depends on the owner. I mean, if you're Tom Tepper, then no.
Yeah, if you're David Tepper, that's a wrap.
I mean, I think that's a 1-year job every year. I think he's going to go through a coach a year. I don't know how it changes.
I don't think that's who he is as a person. I think that, like, for him, and I'm glad I'm not an employee of his.
Right.
Like, that's how he runs his businesses. That's how he runs everything. Like, if you don't give him the results damn near immediately,
right, which is impossible.
You're gone, and it's impossible. And in football, it is particularly impossible because none of this stuff is instant.
Ron Rivera, to your point, I mean, he's a 500 coach, but that's what he is. That's all he ever will be.
Like,
and
even before Washington,
right? And he'll never be any different. That's just who he is.
He's been a 500 coach, except for the one Super Bowl year, which was largely Cam Newton throwing that team on his back and carrying them to wins. Like, it was unbelievable.
Yep, agreed.
So, I just think that that's where we're at, where, like, we are more impatient as a society, but then the guys that make the decisions, the guys that have the power, they're more impatient than the rest of us, it feels like. So it still matters. The timeline still matters, but yeah, it does. You've got to have your head on a swivel if you're going to be a coach in the NFL.
I agree. And I think we haven't talked about it. I think there's more jobs out there that are going to open up that we haven't gotten into that are going to be interesting too.
Big George says, hey, you guys didn't mention the impending Arizona Cardinals head coaching vacancy. There isn't one, Big George. They are not firing Jonathan Gannon.
Not yet.
Wouldn't Eric Bieniemy be perfect here in Arizona with Kyler Murray? I mean, any quarterback that throws the ball deep well, that Eric Bieniemy is going to be fine with. That's his exact kind of guy. And all of his offenses are geared towards that. Plus, you have the actual running threat that Kyler Murray just gives you naturally to make up for the fact that Eric Bieniemy genuinely does not like running the football. It could be nice, but Jonathan Gannon has this job, and I think that the Cardinals have shown enough in year one with him. They have exceeded my expectations. I thought the Cardinals were going to be much worse of a football team than this, and they're not. They go out there, they fight every week.
Well, and you've got to give him at least 2 more years to kind of start drafting some more guys
right.
and seeing what he's going to do with them. He's far from in jeopardy at all. You're stuck with him for at least the next 2 years.
And they have to make a decision on Kyler Murray as well, because that's not their guy. Nope. You know, and some team might be able to trade Kyler for something if, you know, you get together in the offseason with your coaches, your coordinators, your general manager. You know, Drew Petzing says, hey, we've got something here with Kyler. We might be able to figure it out. You might give Kyler another year and see how it goes. I don't see it either.
Yeah, I don't see it.
But it's a possibility. They're sitting there at 3. And if you're there at 3, if the Patriots or the Bears do something stupid and Drake May or Caleb Williams are there, I just take them. I don't even worry about it. And it's not set in stone that the Patriots are even going to sit there and hold that number 2 spot. The Cardinals and the Patriots have the same record. So, you know, this is something where, you know, the Patriots fumble around and win another game, then, you know, the Cardinals are back at number 2. And at that point, I just take Drake May and move on.
I mean, I think Kyler has a future in somewhere like New Orleans, Tampa Bay. I mean, I think he's going to wind up in one of those kind of teams like next year. I don't see him staying.
Yeah,
no way.
There's and look, one of those teams that's really desperate for a quarterback every year, so they just swing at every guy that's even remotely available. Like the Saints. Like the Saints are the team that just immediately pops into my head.
Yeah, me too. Which is another team that I think may be looking for a new coach. We'll see, but yeah.
Yeah, right. So that's the other issue too, because they were supposed to be the best team in that division, and it's a bad division, and they're somehow not. So that's probably not great news for Dennis Allen. Mr. Wilbur says, is the last hour of this specific Friday going to be a funny Friday or simply a fast break football Friday? Well, I don't know. Like, I got to rely on you guys for jokes, because I don't claim to be funny. Any joke I have ever told, I have walked into on accident. I don't tell jokes on purpose. So is it going to be funny? Time will tell. If, you know, the fourth dimension wants to drop in and text some funny stuff, well, then that would help us greatly.
It's been a good Football Friday show.
It's been a good Football Friday show. We talked way more football than I intended, but quite frankly,
good stuff.
That's never a bad thing. I love talking about football. Yep. Canadian Butt Thunder says, hi there, Ralph and Keon. I'm also a Seahawks fan, but now that I live in Arizona, I'm thinking about becoming a Cardinals fan.
All right.
Want to support the local team. Ralph, how come you haven't become a Cardinals fan? Go Hawks.
Because, okay, so my Canadian brother, I understand wanting to support your local team. I've lived all around the country over the last 20 years, so I've had this everywhere I go, which is funny because if you ask anybody in any of these markets that I've been in, they always, when they see the Seahawks on TV, they think of me. Go figure. I usually get phone calls and emails. But anyway, I'm a diehard Seahawk fan, unlike what everybody says me being, a bandwagon guy. I've been following them since day one. I love the Seahawks. If you ever came to my house, you would recognize that right away. There's Seahawks stuff everywhere. I will never follow the local team. I don't hate the local teams. I can't say that I love them. But I appreciate the local fans pulling for their team, just like I pull for my Seahawks. But this just happens to be a Cardinal team that I don't think is very good. It hasn't been very good since I've been here. I've been here like 11 years. And I don't think they do a lot of good things. I think they need a new owner, and I'm not going to support a team like that. So I'm all about my Seahawks.
Yeah, and I was a military kid growing up, so I just don't change my team. Like if I changed every time I moved to a new city, I wouldn't even have loyalty. It wouldn't matter.
You stay with your teams. That's what you do, right?
Yeah. And actually, like I was a Washington fan, and I moved to Texas, and I got heckled by the Cowboy fans. And at some point, it was just like, no, you've actually made me more of a Washington fan. Like I actually do not like. I don't like your team. I hate everything about them. And you've proven that greatly. So it just, some people stick with their guns. I understand trying to fit in with the locals a lot in that way, because you go to a new city, and when the team wins, you can feel it. Like everybody's just happier. But if you have a team and it's been your team for double-digit years, it doesn't even matter what happens with the local team. When your team wins, you feel happy.
And plus, what was his name? Is it Canadian?
It was Canadian Butt Thunder.
Yeah, that's a great name. It's a lot. They're a division rival, number one. I mean, so you're not gonna pull for a division rival. I mean, I wouldn't pull for a division rival.
I can't.
You just can't do it. And number two, it's so much fun to make people uncomfortable and piss them off when you're talking about their team and how they suck. I live for that. So I enjoy bagging on the Cardinals all that I do. I just think it's fun.
Yeah, and the reaction from the fourth dimension is always fun with it too. So,
and being an LA guy, you have to remember. I mean, I'm a championship guy. All my teams win titles, and in Arizona, that's the Achilles heel here. Nobody wins titles, so it just makes it even that much.
It's
more
the
fun.
fifth largest city in the country, and I want the fans here to expect more.
And it's not the fans' fault; it's ownership. All the ownership in this town has been horrendous for years. So I have sympathy for you, but I'm still going to be bagging on you.
But if you just turn your back on a bad team for just a little bit, put some pressure on the ownership, trust me, they'll figure it out. Yeah. Let's see here. We've got Chief Skull on the line saying Eric Bieniemy, an ex-running back who doesn't like running the ball as a coach. How odd. Well, this is the thing, is like his big responsibility that he got was coaching Patrick Mahomes. I think he got spoiled on a team where even if they can't run the ball, it doesn't matter. And I think that's the reason why he's like that. Because I was talking to a buddy of mine. He's a reporter. He covers the Commanders, and he was basically saying like they don't even really practice running the ball. Like they do a little, but it ain't much. So anyway, that's where I come down on that. Big George says, I know, I was just joking. Gannon is not going anywhere. He's done a decent job with very little. Emphasis on little. Get it? Kyler Murray?
That's exactly
okay.
Right.
Blow the whistle on me. No, because that offends Randy. That doesn't offend me at all. My feelings are not hurt by you making fun of how short Kyler Murray is. So go crazy if you want to. This will be a whistle-free day on that particular front. Kiss the Cook says, wait, an ex-running back that doesn't like running the ball? That's like Oral Roberts running a brothel.
Wow. They probably do, by the way.
I mean, I wouldn't be stunned.
Don't think this because they are what they are that they don't.
I'm just saying, between what happened at like Liberty University and some of these other Christian schools, like, yay, man, practice what you preach. The Chosen One says, afternoon, gentlemen, and happy Friday. Excited for fantasy playoffs this weekend, even though I'm on a bye in this league. Skull Vikings. Las Toby says Ralph's day one started in 2014. That was a while ago. I don't remember in what context that text is, Las Toby.
Day one.
If you could just refresh my memory, please. Randy's Chuckle says, what's your take on tonight's FCS matchup? Are you expecting stiff competition? Can I read that? No, I don't. Well, okay. Randy's Chuckle, I don't even know what FCS matchup is happening. Despite the fact that I attended an FCS school, I genuinely vaguely follow FCS football. So what are your thoughts, Randy's Chuckle? What do you think's going to happen? You give me the breakdown. How about that? It'll be Randy's Chuckle one-time incredibly miniature dance party. Harvey Putzwaddler. Look, I just can't promise him more. It's not my show. You know, next Friday might be a different situation, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you how it's going to go down. Harvey Putzwaddler says, I have two favorite teams, the Detroit Lions and whoever is playing the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right?
Yeah. No, I can understand that. Flappy Mac says, I root the Cards, but I'm from Cleveland, so so Pittsburgh is my team, like the other 80% of Ohio. Wow, you're from Cleveland, and it's like, yeah, not even going to look at the Browns.
I mean, I get it; they suck.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's a tough organization to follow.
It's just like, no, look, there's another team that's like right nearby. Let's just do that.
I mean, I can see that.
I can't say that I blame you. Chief Scold says Seahawks won title, Ralph. That's not Title Town.
I didn't say they were Title Town, but at least they have it. No, they should have two, by the way. But I mean, you're right. I mean, there's only one, but I'll take it. I'm thrilled with it. I'm a diehard. I was following the Seahawks back in the day when they sucked. I mean, really sucked. I mean, like in 1992, where I think they won 2 games. But I didn't care. I'd watch those games as a diehard. I love the Seahawks. So,
Lost Toby says he just said that he's been a Seagulls fan since day one, and so he was saying your day one was 2014.
No, my day one was 1976.
So there you have that, Lost Toby. Hope that helps. 602 Pats fan says, so we can call Kyler a Keebler elf?
He looks like it when you go to the games.
I mean,
it looks like an 8-year-old is running out there to grab the tee after the kickoffs, but it's really the quarterback. I'm serious. That's always what I think. I'm like, what is that kid doing on the field? Oh,
yeah,
it's Kyler.
Kyler Murray and Bryce Young are the two guys that when anybody hits them, I actually feel bad for them. Like, no, don't do that to him. He's just a little guy. Don't.
Bryce Young, I feel more bad for him.
You know, Bryce looks like he's being bullied. Like, just like, why don't you pick on somebody your own size? But he's a quarterback in the NFL. You have to hit him. You have no choice. And his offensive line doesn't protect him, so that makes it a whole lot worse.
I'm worried for him.
I'm genuinely worried for him too. And he's such a nice kid. I wish that he had landed in a better situation, because that's rough. Randy's Chuckle says, but the text line either just didn't like your text. Oh, you sent me a link here. Okay. Albany, South Dakota State. Nobody's scored yet.
South Dakota State, I'll take. And I'll
playing at the Dana J. Dyke House. Got it.
I like North Dakota State against Montana. I'll take them too.
But this is South Dakota State here.
No, but North Dakota State, Montana's playing. The other semifinal.
Yeah, my UTC Mocs, that's my alma mater. They when they got knocked out, I stopped watching. I'm not gonna lie. That was my interest. That was my rooting interest, and it was early. It was like first round, just punched in the nose, and that was the end of that. Still go Mocs, but so Randy's Chuckle. They're the two teams playing. But who do you think is going to win? What is your take on what's going down tonight? Because clearly, you've been paying much closer attention than me. I'll let Randy's Chuckle come back and answer that. We'll get to some other text on the text line, and we'll get to this good Shohei Ohtani news. Now that we've gotten everything caught up to where it's supposed to be, you're listening to the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic. The Fanatic.
This is Brent Musburger's Action Update on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic. Take the guesswork out of your holiday gifts. OmahaSteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and save an additional $30 with promo code VSIN. OmahaSteaks.com.
Heading into Week 15 in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers are the betting favorite to win Super Bowl 58 in February in Las Vegas. The Niners are 10-3. They're plus 250 to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. The Baltimore Ravens, the best bet out of the AFC, are plus 600. They are also 10-3 on the year. Kansas City, the defending Super Bowl champions, are 8-5. They've lost 4 of 6. Nevertheless, they're plus 650 to win the Super Bowl. The Philadelphia Eagles at 10-3 are plus 800. The Miami Dolphins are also plus 800 to win the Super Bowl. I'm Tony Desiri with your VSiN Action Update on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Jeffrey O'Brien here, and congratulations. You just made it through the hottest summer in Arizona history. No lie. The only proof you need is in that electric bill. If you don't have solar, I wonder how bad it's going to get next year. You need to call Harmon Solar today. Harmon Solar could save you over 80% off your electric bills. They're a locally owned, family-owned company. Call Harmon Solar for a free estimate. 800-281-3189. That's 800-281-3189, or go to harmonsolar.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
For the latest from the world of golf, tune in every Saturday morning from 6 to 8 for the Golf Shop Radio Show, presented by PlayGolfMyrtleBeach.com, the golf capital of the world. Hosts Mark Greenhelch and Matt Blanchard talk golf from tee to green and everything in between. If you like golf, you're going to love Golf Shop Radio. Before you tee up, drop on in. Welcome to the Golf Shop here on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Hey, I came as fast as I could. What's wrong?
Everything's okay. I just need you to know I'm glowing up.
You just texted SOS Get Here Now.
And I stand by that because I switched to Cricket and got the all-new Motorola Razr. I have entered my flip era, and I am glowing up.
I'm gonna go back home.
I support that.
Switch to Cricket and get the all-new Motorola Razr for $199.99. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Must open a new line on a $60 a month voice plan. First month service charge and tax to its sale. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Hi, I'm State School Superintendent Tom Horn. Arizona has a shortage of teachers and a need to improve students' proficiency in reading and math. We need to increase teachers' income, which they deserve, and to increase students' proficiency, which is my highest priority. I'm therefore providing $40 million for one-on-one tutoring for grades 1 through 8, public and charter school students who did not perform proficient on the last state test. Learn more today at azia.gov.
Sponsored by the Arizona Department of Education.
Grand Canyon University basketball is back for another exciting season. After advancing to March Madness in 2 of his 3 seasons as the head coach, Bryce Drew brings a team to the court this season, picked to win the conference once again, and led by first-team All-WAC selection Gabe McLaughlin and WAC preseason Player of the Year Ray Harrison. Check out the schedule at gculopes.com to find matchups with San Francisco, DePaul, Liberty, and last year's national championship runner-up, the San Diego State Aztecs. Join me, Michael Potter, and Lopes insider Paul Coro all season long right here on The Fanatic, the home of Lopes basketball.
Welcome back to the Daily Blender here on 1580 The Fanatic. Little AC/DC.
Yeah, nice.
Money made. Little fitting because we're about to talk about Shohei Ohtani, who made a whole bunch of money.
Couple bucks.
Yeah, a little here and there. So I'll start with the good news before I start with a lot of the complaining that's been going around with Shohei Ohtani and his contract and the salary cap and should the Major League Baseball have a salary cap? But we'll get there. But let's start with the good news. Shohei Ohtani was being introduced as a Dodger yesterday. Had the jersey on. I always think it's weird that they have the guy just put the jersey on over his like suit and tie. It
looks funny.
Yeah, just like you want to see what he looks like in the jersey, and you only kind of get that because he's not going to be out there with a tie. So like, what are we doing? No. But regardless, it was a presser, and he was dressed professionally for it. But his translator said something that was pretty interesting, which is that his UCL surgery was not a Tommy John surgery. So it was a surgery. He is going to miss a lot of time. It's going to be a while before he pitches. They're not saying he's going to pull an Aaron Rodgers and try and come back before he's ready to actually play. But I think that that's good news because 2 Tommy John surgeries is a lot. You're asking a lot of the human body to basically get a second ligament grafted into that elbow and get that thing to work. So the fact that the surgery was not a Tommy John actually makes it more likely that Shohei is going to be the Shohei we remember from before the injury than not. It's good news. What do you think?
I mean, I'm excited. My jersey's on order, so I'm excited.
Did you see that he just became instantly the #1 jersey on Fanatics?
Instantly, yes.
Yeah, I mean, and it was not just in baseball. I think it was just like the #1 jersey in sports.
In sport, it was all of sports. I mean, it's a big deal, right? I thought you were going to talk about when they were introducing him, how his interpreter was looking up at the sky because planes were flying overhead and he kept staring up. I thought it was kind of funny looking. But anyway.
I mean, that was pretty funny too.
It was funny. But yeah, and then of course they put a hat over his nicely combed hair and that jersey over his tie. And you're right. That was weird.
And they're not the only ones that have done it. He's just the most recent one that comes to mind.
Right.
But it's weird that they do that.
It is. And all I can say about him is he's dry swinging right now. So he's already started the process of doing that. He'll be hitting off of a tee next because that's the next process. And then he'll go into more hitting. So he's actually, his pace is scheduled maybe to be ready for opening day. So, I mean, that's a big deal that if he can start swinging by opening day and be the DH that they need, that's going to be awesome. The normal person might take about a month or so after that, but we'll see how he goes. He's been a quick healer. He's a great athlete.
Yeah, he's a freaky athlete. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a freak of nature. The way they introduced him yesterday was kind of crazy. I mean, they were just talking about, this is the greatest player to ever play the game. I mean, we'll be able to say that for sure in 10 years, but I'm excited. Obviously a lot of people are excited to see it. And I'm looking forward to seeing him in Dodger blue on the field doing what he does. We don't need him to pitch right now. That's not what he's there for right now. We just need his bat and we need him as a great teammate. So we're excited.
Yeah. And I think he's already shown with the Angels that he can be that. And, he's also just got that intense desire to win. So I think that whatever the rehab schedule and whatever the timeline is, we're not talking about a guy that you're worried may not follow through or anything like that. We're talking about somebody who's basically been every bit of a professional since the day he showed up as a major leaguer.
I mean, if you listen to his interpreter talk, he's all about winning rings. I mean, that's what he's there for. That's why he chose the Dodgers. He knew that was his best opportunity to win rings. And he's a smart man for choosing that. The Dodgers have been going after him since he was in high school. They tried to get him out of Japan when he was out of high school. And so they've been following him forever and they're excited to have him. He's excited to be there and he's going to win rings there. No doubt in my mind. So I'm excited and I love the fact of what he's done with his salary. I know you're going to get to that in a second anyway, but by doing that, he's allowing the Dodgers to do some really good thing. I'll let you talk about that first, and we can go into what the Dodgers have just did yesterday because of that, which was a great move.
Yeah. And we're going to get there in a moment, but I want to get to the text line real quick and then we're going to jump back to it. Let's see here. Baker's Cocky Hen says, I grew up 2 hours outside of Chicago and my dad is from Cleveland. So I'm a Browns fan and still root for the Bears as well. Just not this weekend. Let's go Flacco. LGF. Let's go Flacco.
Wow.
Hefty Lefty says, oh no. Hefty Lefty says, well, I won't be seeing Wemby versus AD tonight. AD is out. Braun is playing though. So he gets his first crack at the Slender Man.
So it's AD's turn to sit.
Yeah. So
they shouldn't have done that tonight. But I get why they are.
Yeah, they shouldn't have, but it is one of those things where you
want 3-20.
You're not going to risk Anthony Davis if he woke up today and he was a little sore. I don't know if I risk Anthony Davis on the 3-20 Spurs.
Yeah,
it just seems like a waste. Who did I just click on here? Mr. Wilbur says, Ralph, when you say a lot of people are excited about that new Dodger guy who's going to be a flop, please tell me you're not including me. I messed up the reading of that. Let me try that again. Ralph, when you say a lot of people are excited about that new Dodger guy who's going to be a flop, please tell me you're not, including me.
Why would I not be?
He-
I'm
he-
not including you.
He's a Dodger fan. Like
Why wouldn't you be excited about this guy? I don't. I guess I need more context. So explain to me why this is a bad thing. That's what I'd want to know.
Especially from the point of view of the Dodgers. Like if you're the Giants, this is awful because you offered the same amount of money and he basically looked at you and was
Even
like,
more.
no, I don't think I'm going to win here. And I'll say no to some money to basically stay where I am in the same city I am anyway.
I mean, you just signed a generational player, maybe the best player ever to play the game. How would you not be excited about that? The guy he's a winner whatever he does.
Yeah.
I get the Angels. He couldn't do it there because they didn't have anything around him. So throw that away and explain to me why in context it's not a good thing. Or why you're not
And
excited.
his numbers have been great, regardless of what's going
absolutely.
on with the Angels. Let's see here. Randy's Chuckle says, got to be South Dakota with the win. They're at home playing at the Dana Dykhouse Stadium. Really was just the stiff competition at the Dykhouse joke, which is why I didn't know if I was being set up for something, man. Listen, I got to protect the FCC license at all costs. If I think I can't read something, man, I ain't gonna read it because this station still has to function by the time I come back Monday. I like my job. He also says the Dodgers don't need Ohtani to pitch either, since they just traded Glasnow for a couple of peanuts.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to get there as well. Cole Pappy says, is the Seahawks Dodger fan also a big Duke basketball fan?
No, I hate Duke basketball. I'm a when it comes to college basketball, I've always been a USC fan who has a terrible basketball program for years. Finally has a decent program, but not, is what it is. No, I hate Duke.
Yeah, I'm excited about Isaiah Collier with USC.
Yeah, I am too. I think he's probably the number 1 draft pick next year.
I think so too, and I need this Wizards tank job to go well.
Yeah,
I've had my eye on that dude for a long time.
Well, the Spurs are looking at him right now.
I know, my God,
which is exactly what they would need to keep building that thing.
Yeah, they need a point guard really badly because if I have to watch another possession run by Jeremy Sohan, I'm going to cry. It's bad basketball. He's a good player. He's just not a point guard.
Right.
Las Toby says the Dodgers are the Monstars. Big George says, Ralph, it is like the aliens from Space Jam.
Okay.
Steal all the powers from. Well, okay. Not to derail the show, which is a staple of this show.
Here we go.
But the Monstars stole the powers of the best NBA players. And I get Patrick Ewing and Charles Barkley. Sean Bradley?
Yeah.
Why did they steal his powers? You mean
Leave
the
him
power
alone.
of being 7 feet tall and still not being able to score? I do not.
He was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, they stole Muggsy Bugs' power, which is not bad, but it's like you couldn't do better at point guard than Muggsy Bugs. Like these aliens didn't know basketball at all.
You gotta like Muggsy though.
Yeah, and I do like Muggsy, and I think that like his personality as the alien in the movie is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But no. The Dodgers aren't the Monstars. I would assume that they are better than the Monstars because there isn't a Sean Bradley on the Dodgers. Big George says, Ralph, it is going to be that much more sweeter when the Diamondbacks whoop your Dodgers asses back to LA in the playoffs in the next 10 years now that Shohei Ohtani is on the team. Baseball, more so than the NBA and the NFL, is about the team you have put together. The richest teams hardly ever win the World Series. I will laugh and laugh all the way to the World Series.
And you're technically right, but the difference is the Dodgers are already a solid team. They won 100 games last year in a rebuild. That doesn't happen. That team is really good. And if they had the pitchers not healthy last year, your Diamondbacks would have never got past them. But we'll let that go. You guys did what you did. The fact that they're adding these pieces now is really scary to the rest of baseball. And because of Ohtani, and this is one of the reasons why I love the guy so much, more people will want to come play for the Dodgers to be part of what they're building now. That's the key.
Which brings me to the thing we're going to talk about now with the Ohtani contract. I think we all have the details all out there. The $700 million, the $20 million for the first 10 years, and then the last $680, dispensed out over the 10 years after that. So it's $20 million a year for the next 10, and then it's 68 mil for the next 10 after that. Which helps the Dodgers a ton, obviously, and keeps them from getting it way deep into luxury tax territory, which they are probably still going to spend to.
Yeah, they're going
to. They just didn't want to go, insane with it, but that's where they're going to spend to. And so this has brought up the conversation again. I think Jeffrey actually touched on it earlier this week a little bit, but it brings up the conversation every time one of these guys gets paid millions upon millions of dollars. Should Major League Baseball have a salary cap? And then when you consider what Ohtani's value is, and how far out into the future that contract goes, the conversation's been really up there. Now, I don't think I've ever heard your opinion, Ralph, on whether or not Major League Baseball should have a salary cap in the first place, putting Shohei Ohtani aside. Say the Dodgers never sign him for whatever reason. Shohei decided he never wanted to win a championship and went to San Francisco. Do you think baseball should have a salary cap?
So putting aside my fandom as a Dodger, yes, it absolutely should. By not having a salary cap, you're allowing the teams that have the money, the Dodgers, the Yankees, especially, to create these super teams in a sense. It's not fair to the small market teams, even though we have seen in baseball. I mean, there is a difference because unlike sports like basketball, where if you can get 3 studs and then put a bunch of really good role players around them, you can dominate that sport. That's very possible. In baseball, you can't do that. So you can add a Shohei Ohtani, not put anything around him that you need, have your salary cap be blown, and you still are not going to win, which is what you've seen in baseball. Which is why you don't have, that's the argument against the cap. But I still think there needs to be some kind of a limit to it. There's got to be something, because it's kind of crazy what you could do in baseball if you really want to. And how the Dodgers have been smart and actually changed the game is with this deferral. Now, the Dodgers, this is not the first contract they have. Freddie Freeman has deferred money. Mookie Betts has deferred money. They've been doing this for a while because they're smart and they know how to put a team together. And that's how you do it. So there's ways around the salary cap. You'd have to change a lot of things like the CBA in order to make that work. But I think you probably do need to look at a salary cap. I don't think it's unreasonable to say something is needed. But at the same time, if we don't have it, let's work with what we don't have.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I am for a salary cap, but I'm not one of those people that thinks it's as urgent as.
Not in baseball.
Not in baseball, no. When you look at the number of teams that have been successful since the start of the century,
yeah,
there have been more teams to go to the World Series, play in the World Series in Major League Baseball than in the NFL and the NBA. The NBA, especially, like you said, is really bad about it because salary cap or not, you can still put together a roster with a bunch of stars. And if those guys are healthy, you're more likely than not going to be successful. And to the point where we've seen like the same 6 teams win titles for the most part.
Right.
We keep seeing the Warriors, we keep seeing the Lakers, we keep seeing the Celtics make appearances. We keep seeing Miami, and that's kind of the end of the list. We've got Milwaukee sneaking one in there, but for the most part, it's just harder to do in basketball. I don't think that a salary cap necessarily makes a sport fair all by itself.
Great.
And I also don't think that this contract should be the tipping point. Like
it really should.
If you were cool with it before, and the owners, I don't know if the owners are cool with it, but they're definitely cool with not trying to fight the players union over it. So if you can live with it, and you could live with it before, like this is not the thing that's going to put it over. And I saw an article on CBS Sports that made a case about the Shohei contract is actually not as massive as it seems. It is $700 million. Okay, I'm not saying that it's not 700 mil, but you also have to account because of how far into the future the money is deferred. If you adjust for inflation, the value of the money is closer to like 500 mil. And actually, a lot of general managers in baseball are more cool with that contract than a lot of the fans of baseball. When we see the contract, we see $700 million, we see 680 deferred, 20 years from now. Like it feels wrong. And so then we freak out about it. But the fact is that like it's actually not as valuable a contract when you adjust for inflation as not. And it actually kind of made sense to me.
Well, I mean, just remember when A-Rod got $250 million from the Rangers. Everyone freaked out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look where we are now.
Right. Like $250 million is, I don't want to say it's nothing, but you're not even close to being, a top paid player in baseball. No. And if you're somebody who's a Juan Soto or something like that, if somebody offered you $250 million, you'd be insulted.
I always think back, this is my favorite one, is when the Lakers signed Magic to that $1 million a year contract for 25 years. Everybody went nuts about that. I mean, remember, that was a game changer back in the 80s.
And look, it's still $700 million. I like Shohei Ohtani is never going to have to do any chore in his house ever again if he doesn't want to. So I'm not saying pity him that it's not actually a full 700 mil, but I'm saying like the money does not feel, it's not as bad as it feels.
I mean,
that's my point.
He's going to make $45 million a year just in endorsements. How about that?
Yeah,
that's insanity.
That's absolute madness. And then you look down the list of sponsors and it's like, man, it never ends. And then you continue to go down the list and the list changes from English to Japanese because he's getting sponsorship money from back home too. So the further you go down the list, the more you're like, man, this is the contract, the salary cap in baseball. When you start talking about some of these mega superstars, does it affect them that much? I mean, like you're Aaron Judge. I know Aaron Judge is making a ton in endorsements as well because he's in every commercial in the summer, basically. It's still a tough deal if you're another team, you're a smaller team, or you're a team like the Diamondbacks or a team like my Nationals, where you're not a small market, but your owners just don't spend money.
Right.
And that to me is where I think the issue is. I would rather. My sense of urgency is directed at a salary floor. Like I need guys to go out there and start actually spending cash.
Yeah,
because that's really the only way you're going to get the parity to where you want it.
I've said this before too, and I agree with you. I believe that's the bigger problem in baseball is you have organizations that won't spend, and there should be some kind of a floor cap in a sense. Because if you're going to own a Major League Baseball team, those fans deserve for you to at least put an effort in to try to be competitive. Now, the Oakland A's have found a way to make that work a few years ago, but still it's not working anymore. There needs to be a minimum spending cap because you can't be all in and be the lowest on the totem pole and not give your fans at least the opportunity to maybe make the playoffs. I get teams like the Diamondbacks, they made it this last year, and that was, I don't want to say it's a fluke, but it was a fluke. I'm sorry. It was an absolute fluke. I don't see it happening again anytime soon. But they should be forced to have to spend a certain amount of money to bring the kind of players in to make them competitive on a yearly basis.
Yeah. And then if we do that and it still feels like it's not really competitive, all right, then we can make that push for a salary cap. But if we don't start with the salary floor, I actually don't know what we're doing.
Yep.
So we're right up against the break here, and we've got some maybe basketball stuff to kick around. We've got the text line to get back to. We've got the historian, Lost Toby, Flappy Max. You guys are all on deck. I see you. And we'll get to you here on the Daily Blender on 1580, The Fanatic.
Michael Fabiano here. And if you want even more excitement on game day, it's time to get on Prize Picks, the best way to win big on fantasy sports. Here's how it works. Just pick 2 to 6 players and choose more or less on their stats. If you get them right, you can win up to 25 times your cash. It's quick and easy to make your picks. And with fast and safe deposits and withdrawals, Prize Picks is the place to play this season. Prize Picks has awesome weekly promotions, and they're the only daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, keeping you in the game even if one of your players goes down. Watch your entry update in real time and continue the fun by making picks on second half and fourth quarter stats. And right now, when you go to prizepicks.com/primetime and use code primetime, Prize Picks is matching your first deposit up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/primetime with code primetime for a 100% deposit match. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy, must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for details.
If you're rolling over your 401k to an IRA soon, but not sure if you want to go all in on this crazy market, here's what many retiring professionals are doing. How about a safe and secure IRA offering a contractually guaranteed 10% income bonus that grows 7% annually guaranteed? Your income can double in 10 years. Meanwhile, neither your principal nor your retirement income is ever subjected to a market downturn. Even if the market crashes by 50%, you get the 10% bonus. Your income keeps growing at 7%, and your principal may grow without losses uncapped. You go up with the index, never down. Forward, never back. Get a 10% income bonus with a 7% contractually guaranteed growth rate. I compare over 1,200 annuities with a fiduciary duty and can help you retire and stay retired.
Guarantees rely on the financial strength of the insurer, so compare with leading annuity authority Steve Jurich now. Visit IQannuity.com. IQannuity.com. IQannuity.com.
Looking for that perfect gift that will make her eyes light up like a winter wonderland? Look no further than me, Diamond Dave of Desert Wholesale Diamond, the 4th generation diamond importer. Diamond Dave here, and we bring you the lowest wholesale diamond prices and exceptional service, making your buying as easy and smooth as possible. With our incredible selection of top quality diamonds, you can capture the spirit of the season and give a gift that will shimmer with memories for a lifetime. From stunning engagement rings to sparkling necklaces and earrings, we have the perfect present for this holiday season. Make this holiday season truly unforgettable by choosing a diamond from me, Diamond Dave. We offer the highest quality and craftsmanship for an exceptional value. Come visit me and everyone at Desert Wholesale Diamond today to create precious memories that will shine bright for years to come.
Call Diamond Dave at 480-397-2450. That's 480-397-2450. Or follow him on Instagram at Diamond Dave, KANTOR.
1580 The Fanatic.
Welcome back to the Daily Blender. Last segment, we almost have this show in the books, and I'd like to thank everybody for sticking around and listening to us, despite the fact that the show must feel like a different show than the show you listen to every day. And I cannot promise you jokes. I can't promise you anything funny on purpose. I mean, outside of accidental jokes I tell and mistakes that I make. Any other entertainment in that department is all you guys, and we appreciate you joining us on the text line 888-368-1580. We're going to get back to a little bit of NFL here to end the show because it's been an NFL Friday, had a lot of stuff to talk about, and it's been really good and really fun to go back and forth with Ralph and everybody in the fourth dimension. But let's get to the text line really quick before we do. Flappy Max says, I wonder how many new listeners think they finally found an afternoon, informative, serious, bottom line, fast-paced, hard-hitting sports talk show. They have no idea. Flappy Max, on Monday, they're going to be really disappointed. And it's because the blender it's just its own animal. Nobody can control it when Randy and Jeffrey are here. It's just so much faster when it comes to the jokes, the humor. I have a blast. I just can't do that. That's just not a skill that I have. And you got to be realistic with yourself. The worst thing that could have happened today is if I decided to come out here and try to be funny. I promise that would not have gone well for any of us.
I can do it, but I need Randy and Jeffrey here so I can make fun of them. That's the thing.
Yeah, and I can play off of people, but I am not the person starting jokes. That just is not how it works. Let's see here. Good old text line being itself and not at all working today. Lost Toby says, real question. If the Dodgers don't win it all, do they keep stacking up? I assume they still don't have the pitching next year.
Well, you got to remember they just traded for Glass now, which is a great move for them. It's a great pitcher, and that move is a playoff move. That's a guy to have in the rotation come October or even November nowadays. So yeah, and they got their eyes on Corbin Burns and Yamamoto as well as Hader. So the Dodgers aren't done. The money's there now thanks to Ohtani, and you're going to see at least one more pitcher pickup, and which is what's hurting them this year. Plus, you get Walker Buehler back, you get Dustin May back. Look out.
Certain 7-foot lawyer is getting a little antsy. He says, Keon, did you get on this date in Big Georgia sports history? If not, that's okay. I know there are special circumstances going into this week, except Big George, you of little faith. I did get on this date in Big Georgia sports history. I've done a horrible job teasing it, but we're going to get there. We've got it on deck, and we are going to absolutely get there. Beer Bob says, Ralph, congratulations on your team getting Tyler Glasnow. Hopefully you guys fall flat on your faces next year. Wow.
I love it, man. Oh, next year's baseball is going to be fun.
Isn't it?
I can't wait. This show is going to be a Dodger show all day.
Oh, man, it's going to be insufferable. All right. The historian says, a Christmas thought. What has 16 actors, 5 settings, 3 writers, and 1 plot line? 674 Hallmark Christmas movies.
Wow.
Yeah. No, as a kid who had to hang out with my mom through some of those, that was not great. And the Cardinals are still looking for a Merry Christmas. Well, you know,
good luck.
It is what it is. Big George says, thanks, you're full of surprises. No, thank you, Big George. In fact, let's just go ahead and get to it because I realize that I'm about to open up a can of worms, and I'm really bad about getting back on track, and we are running out of show. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump to on this date in Big Georgia sports history and kind of use that to tie together what we were just talking about with Shohei Ohtani. On this date in Big Georgia's sports history, back in the year 1980, Dave Winfield, 276 batting average, 20 home runs, 87 RBIs, became the highest paid professional athlete when he agreed to a 10-year free agent deal with the New York Yankees worth a record $16 million. Wow. $16 million whole dollars, which would buy him what, like a car today? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Reggie Jackson, who heartily endorsed the signing when asked his opinion by owner George Steinbrenner, would not be offered an extended contract when he became a 34-year-old free agent at the end of the season because of his age. Back to you, Jeffrey, even though Jeffrey is not here. So, yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. $16 million. That doesn't sound like anything now. Like, there's no athlete in our major professional sports who would even accept $16 million if they thought that they were the best player in the league.
Yeah, I mean, minimum salary in baseball is what, like $700,000 or $800,000 a year. So
yeah,
it's nothing.
I mean, that's basically. I'm not going to go to the inflation calculator right now, but like that's probably what the $16 million comes out to now, from back then. So anyway, that is on this date in Big Georgia sports history.
It's a good one.
And now for me to open up a can of worms that we do not have a ton of time to actually break down. Brock Purdy.
Oh gosh.
You know, look, Cam Newton was on a podcast and he said that Brock Purdy was a game manager, and everybody in the world of shouting talking heads lost their damn minds. And started talking about Cam Newton and his career like he had never done anything, which I just think is absurd. Was Cam the greatest quarterback ever? No. Was he consistent? Absolutely not. Like, Cam's bad is as bad as any bad quarterback I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But the best of Cam Newton was a league MVP and went to the Super Bowl. And I then ran into a Broncos team that just absolutely was playing some of the best defense we've seen that season. So like that, Cam at least has earned the right to speak on the issue. You may not agree with him, but he's at least earned the right to say, yeah, this is what I think this guy is. And he made a distinction between game managing quarterbacks and game changing quarterbacks. And I think that there is something to that. Like, you know, guys like Patrick Mahomes, where even if you call the wrong play, he can probably still make it work.
Right.
You know, feel the same way about Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and guys like that because of whatever extra abilities they have, whether it's speed or just a huge arm or just a complete command of their offense, whatever the issue is. And I know that you get people who get mad when you call their quarterback, not just Brock Purdy, but their quarterback a game manager. But I like Brock Purdy's response to the whole thing. He said, I play quarterback. That's it. And I agree. Like, the results are what they are. He fits into that offense. He doesn't make them worse. And if these are the results you're going to get, I mean, I don't care if you call him a giraffe. I mean, he's good at the job that he's doing, and he's young enough he can actually get better. Like there's a ceiling there. But I just don't think that game manager is the worst thing that you can call somebody. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think right now at this point in his career, with the team around him, he's a game manager. And that's okay. Like you just said, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, the one thing about him that I mean, I don't know him personally, obviously, but he seems like a really good kid. But the one thing that I've noticed watching him play is he makes some really good, tough throws. Really good, tough throws. I mean, they're throws that you sit there and you shake your head and go, man, how did he do that? That tells me that he's probably down the road, once he gets more experience and stuff, he's going to be kind of the guy that's going to take over and kind of command the offense and run it, and he'll be okay. And he'll move from game manager to game changer. I think it's very possible. I don't think he's Holmes. I don't think he's Caleb Williams. I don't think he's those guys, but I do think he can potentially be an elite quarterback in this league. He is not today. He's a game manager today because that's what the situation dictates him to be. That's all he needs to be. And he's doing a really good job of it. So we'll have to see over the next few years as the Niners roster changes, because it will, and pieces will disappear.
And one day they'll have to pay him. That's the other part.
Right. That's another piece. You're going to have to give this guy the money. But once the roster changes and stuff, we'll see how good he really is at that point. He has all the potential in the world. There's no doubt about it. He could be the most amazing last pick of the draft ever. But we're going to wait and see. We don't know.
Yeah. I agree. People treat it like this massive insult that you say a guy's a game manager, but it's like there's something else he could be. He could just be bad.
Yeah.
He's a good quarterback. Like, why does it have to be anything beyond that? We don't have to anoint him the next Tom Brady.
No.
And even Brady wasn't Brady in his first 2 seasons.
Yeah, exactly. He managed the game.
He was a game manager early. And then he evolved over time as he got more comfortable, like you said. All right, let's see how many texts I can get through here. Swave Dave says, okay, let's try this one. One night, a Viking named Rudolph. Oh, God, what a horrible time for this to load. I'm not going to get to your text, Swave Dave. Beer Bob, Big George, Killer Rabbit. Guys, thanks for listening, but we are all out of time. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on Monday. This is the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.